We are waiting for one of the committee, Adrian, but I'm not sure what's happened. But anyway, and welcome to everybody who's come this afternoon. Thank you very much for coming and supporting. My name's Nicholas Wright. I'm chair of this committee, and introduced Councillor Andrew Dyke, who's vice chair of the committee. Also, Faith Quinn, who's the committee administrator, a senior lawyer, Rachel Cherrington Walker, and Kieran Power, head of development manager. Also, planning officers Matt McConville and Julian McDermott, and I think Victoria Finch will be along later for one of the items. Also like to introduce Assistant Manager of South Worcestershire Land Drainage Partnership, Andrew Fowle, and Fran Davis, Assistant Drainage, whatever your title is, and I'm sorry I've forgotten, but a very important person nonetheless. Just a matter of housekeeping. If in case of a fire, there are fire exits obviously to the gardens here and also the doors where you came in. This committee is being webcast on YouTube, so you can go back home and enjoy it all at a later time, if you so wish. And there will be breaks as and when we need them in the afternoon. Thank you. Are there any apologies for absence? Faith.
Chairman, we have apologies of absence from Councillor Nick Dawkes.
Thank you. And declarations of interest?
Yes, I have declarations of interest for item 7, Councillor Robson, non-pecuniary. The Speaker, Mark Gay, is known to her. Councillor Clatworthy, non-pecuniary. Emma Burrows is known to him. For item 8, both Councillors Sims and Kearsey have declared non-pecuniary interests in that Kevin Beasley is known to them. Item 9, Councillors Adams, Rowley, Robinson. The Speaker, Stephen Holloway, is a former planning officer and therefore they've declared a non-pecuniary interest. And for item 10, Councillor Margaret Rowley, a member of this committee, is the applicant and she will speak outside the committee for this item. She will not take part in the debate nor vote. And all members of the planning committee should declare a non-pecuniary interest for this reason. Thank you.
Are there any further declarations? Councillor Dyke.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to say that because item 7, because I wasn't here for the initial debate, I will be leaving the committee for that one item and I will be back for the following items. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further declarations? No? Thank you very much. You've had the minutes of the last meeting held on the 13th of November. Are there any corrections that you've noticed in the minutes that need amending? No? Therefore, can I have a proposal that this is a true record of the meeting and the second proposed by Councillor Dyke, seconded by Councillor Morris. Thank you very much. I say this most times at committees. Sorry. Sorry, I haven't voted that all minutes are correct. Can I have a show of hands that the minutes are okay? Thank you very much. Thank you. Apologies. Okay. So that you know, all these people who have come this afternoon, a great deal goes into these planning applications, and most of you probably read the reports on the web. And know that usually paragraphs 2 and 3 contain all the various agencies that go through before it becomes to this planning committee. We obviously minded on the individual application, the relevance to the National Planning Policy Framework, Planning and Practice Guidance, the Waste Course Strategy, the South Worcestershire Development Plan, neighbourhood plans and relevant decisions of the Secretary of State, Town and Country Planning Act, amongst others. And there's a great deal of it. So before it comes here, it goes through that, as well as the case officer and the reports that you've probably all read on the web. against the applications. So there is a great deal. You might not agree with the results of this planning committee, but just accept, I hope, that you have a respect that they've considered the application to the full amount that they can do. For those who are speaking, thank you very much for doing that. And just to, if you haven't come before, I'll just explain what happens. For the town or parish councils, you have 3 minutes to speak, and for those objecting, 3 minutes, and for those supporting, 3 minutes. And we do keep a pretty tight view of the time, so if you hear the buzzer, I'm afraid that's it. You'll have to stop. And representatives who wish to speak be given, say, a separate 3 minutes. So what happens is the planning officer will describe the proposal and verbally update the committee, and then the parish or town council will be invited to speak, then the objectors, then the applicant or the supporters, then the visiting ward member will be asked to any questions as the committee will as well, and then the visiting ward member, if we have one, will address the committee, and then it'll be open to debate. So all that is how it works. Your attention is drawn to advice notice to applicants and the public, where it states that where updates have been received before the planning committee's meeting, a written summary of these is generally published by 5 o'clock on the day prior to the committee meeting. Verbal updates may be still made at the meeting itself. I think that covers everything. So we will crack on with item 7, which is planning application reference 25/00234, which is land south of Pershore Road, Evesham. Full planning application for 62 affordable dwellings and associated works. If you remember, this was deferred from the last meeting, or the meeting before, last meeting, for alteration. And I would like to, first of all, ask the speakers to come forward. Emma Burrows and Mark Gay, if you could possibly come and sit in the hot seats at the front. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'll ask Matt McConville to outline this application. Thank you, Matt.
Apologies for that. So, thank you, Chair. Okay, so this is an application for full planning permission with all matters included for 62 affordable dwellings and associated works, including landscaping and access via Hamilton Road. Members visited the site today and had a look at it, so they've got an appreciation of its context and topography, etc. First of all, I'd like to start by drawing your attention to an error in the report. Apologies. There are, in the summary of the consultees, it looks as if the urban design officers have commented on badges. They haven't. That should be comments of the ecologist, so apologies for that. So the site itself is located to the south of Evesham, on the edge of this sort of element that projects out down at the bottom. If we have a look at it in a bit more detail, you can see the site here, which is partially covered by a registered park and garden. It sits within flood zone 1, and the majority of the open space proposed is in flood zones 2, 3 and B and 3A. It doesn't fall within any ecologically sensitive areas, although it does abut the boundary of the River Isbourne, which is a special wildlife site. The northern section is designated, as I say, as the locally the registered park and garden, and there are a group of trees which extend out here, which are covered by a TPO, and a public right-of-way, which we saw today, runs along this sort of east boundary here, and that will be rerouted into the development. As mentioned, was deferred previously at committee for a review of the design, built form, internal dimension, property types, and overall layout changes. The applicant has considered the comments made at the previous committee and made amendments to the scheme. Access to the site is still where it was, where we access the site today off Hamilton Road. The primary change in terms of the plans is this element here, which previously saw these set of three properties in the middle here being side onto the road, which meant that there was a sort of large amount of boundary treatment which would have faced this street scene. This has been changed now, so the central properties here have a more traditional orientation towards the street, which I think that change has made quite a big difference to the scheme and how it will appear as you move through it. So I think that's a very positive change that members sought. As I say, there are other amendments to the scheme. There are subtle changes to the appearance, so the use of a third brick. There are sort of window details on some of the properties and a different, in some cases, different porches. Also, there are 10 of the previous two-bed lower occupancy properties have been replaced with 10 two-bed higher occupancy properties, so there are a higher number of higher occupancy properties on this proposal. So all of the dwellings comply with NDSS standards, with 28 of them meeting the higher occupancy NDSS standards, which is 45% of the development approximately. And given the fact overall this would deliver more higher occupancy NDSS compliant affordable houses than the affordable houses that would be secured if this was a market-led scheme, it's not felt the fact that there are some lower occupancy properties on this development at this time with our policy position would be a robust reason for refusal. The housing department would still like the mix to be more aligned with the preferred mix, but they've not objected to the mix as it is, provided it is secured, so it can't be weakened down. And all of the bungalows are built with level access showers, which is obviously quite important, and that will be, the applicant has agreed to that, and that will be secured by condition. As mentioned, in terms of badges, an additional letter was received since it was previously considered that mentioned the potential for badges on site. The ecologist has visited the site and reviewed the information provided, and has suggested that a precautionary approach is taken, which requires this additional, or the condition that's on the decision notice, that will require a precautionary approach to assess the site before any work start to ensure that no badges are impacted by the development. And as mentioned in the report, the conclusions regarding the other impacts that we would consider as material, such as highways, historic assets, residential amenity, all remain as previously considered at the last committee meeting. 12 further letters of objection were received since the application was previously considered, and these are summarised in the report. In conclusion, overall it is considered that the amendments suggested by the committee have created a more refined and attractive scheme which significantly reduces the amount of boundary treatments which would front the street scene. As mentioned at the last committee, the scale and proportion of properties is considered good and attractive, and of a high standard, and this is enhanced by well-balanced kind of fenestration details. The amendments have enhanced the development and addressed members' previous concerns with regard to design and layout and the adverse impacts of the development, and they would not significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits of the scheme when assessed against the policies within the framework. The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to the conditions in the report, the new level access condition for the bungalows, and the obligations set out in the report.
Many thanks. Emma Burrows, you have 3 minutes, thank you.
So, decisions being made now across Wychavon based on the lack of 5-year supply should mean that the position will be corrected. The attractive rural setting of Evesham in this locality should not be compromised by such a short-term issue. The words of this committee about this site in 2020, as relevant today as they were then. Despite the picture painted by the planning officer, the tilted balance test is not a guarantee of permission. We ask the committee to use their discretion under the tilted balance test and reject the application because of the adverse impacts significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits. The houses provided still don't meet local need, design build quality or NDSS standards when measured against the desired occupancy. Ongoing discussions rehousing mix undermine the opportunity for scrutiny. The 117 net imbalance can be met by other planning approvals already approved within Wychavon or surrounding areas. Searches reveal approvals of over 350 affordable houses to date in 2025, along with several other large developments in the pipeline. We need to stop over-delivering at the expense of local people and Greenbelt. The exceptional circumstances and use of Greenbelt conditions have not been met. The considerable negative impact on existing residents. These are not factors which can be dealt with by condition, they are fundamental to the decision to grant permission. Whilst the provision of 62 affordable houses has undeniable benefits, is that what is being delivered here and at what cost? Changes in layout, design, housing mix do nothing to address the concerns of this committee, access issues, the rerouting of the Pro, nor conservation concerns, and 19 Lingfield Road completely loses their rear access, which they've had since 1972. No increase in one-bed properties, despite this being the biggest area of local need, 51%. No reduction in 3-bed houses, which account for 43% of the development compared to 18% of local need. And only 45% of houses meet the higher occupancy levels, rendering the majority inaccessible to most social housing applicants whose eligibility is measured on occupancy, not bedrooms. Far below the 70% required by the NPPF and the basis upon which this application was put. Building inaccessible housing is like putting petrol in a diesel car and saying you've provided fuel. The NPPF affords Greenbelt protection because of the intrinsic value. The Bloor Homes approval less than 250 metres from this development led to a significant loss of local greenfield. The former Evesham College grounds, a brownfield site being marketed with outline permission for 57 houses, is within 0.3 miles, and this should be utilised before further loss of green space, and it delivers a similar level of housing. The land also lies outside the current SWDP within the significant gap and acts as a community hub. The impact of those residing on Lingfield Road and Hamilton Road will be immense. The traffic and access issues are well documented but remain unresolved, and the lack of infrastructure will affect the wider Evesham area. Put simply, this development does not deliver what it says on the tin, and in the words of Councillor Kersey, there are too many compromises because it is affordable housing, and we do not need to accept those compromises just because it's 100% affordable housing.
Thank you very much indeed. Mark Gay, you have 3 minutes, thank you.
This application was previously deferred for a further consideration of design, including layout, built form, and both the size and type of homes proposed relative to housing need. With regard to layout, we've addressed members' concern around the design of the homes in close proximity to the site access, removing a parking court and excessive views of screen walls and garden fences, replacing them with outward-facing development, side parking, and stronger perimeter blocks in keeping with the existing settlement pattern. Similarly, the elevations have been enhanced through additional design features such as contemporary brick detailing, additional canopy designs, a range of front door colours, and an additional brick and roof tile option. Whilst chimneys, rendered homes, brick head and sill detailing, gablets and dual aspect homes were already incorporated. With regard to the internal home sizes, 100% of the homes comply with the nationally described space standards, and 100% of the homes can achieve a higher occupancy Homes England design standard, as encouraged through the Council's Affordable Housing SPD. This is despite there not being a policy requirement to do so. Furthermore, since the prior committee meeting, the internal size of 10 of the 2-bedroom homes has been increased. With regard to 1-bedroom home provision, the quantum proposed aligns with the quantum as would have been anticipated when the site was allocated. This is because a policy-compliant scheme delivering 40% affordable housing would ordinarily deliver circa 8 one-bedroom homes. An additional request for additional 1-bedroom homes from the housing team would be applicable to the 60% additionality affordable homes proposed above and beyond the policy expectation. However, the significant benefit of these homes being delivered as additional affordable homes rather than market homes significantly outweighs any limited conflict with achieving the housing team's preferred mix for these additional affordable homes. This is because there is a recognised affordable housing need for all of the homes proposed, and therefore the planning outcome will be equally as positive and significant. This can be given even greater weight considering these homes will be bungalows, capable of meeting both elderly and affordable housing needs, with higher quality external amenity spaces, and in greater accordance with both urban design and resident feedback as equally important consultees. For this reason, the housing team do not object to this application, whilst their stated preferences regarding the additional affordable homes proposed above and beyond policy, the proposed mix is acceptable, as confirmed in your officer's report. We are also content to accept the housing team's preferred tenure split and bungalow level access shower requests through both a Section 106 obligation and planning condition respectively. Platform Housing presently support this application. However, further deviation from that proposed would potentially lead to the withdrawal of their interest in this site. In conclusion, we believe that the prior reasons for deferral have been suitably addressed, and the benefits of the proposal continue to significantly support the approval of this application and the prompt delivery of this draft allocated site. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much. The ward councillors are Councillor Clapworthy, Raphael and Councillor Andrew Dyke. As you know, Councillor Dyke isn't taking part in this, and so Councillor Raphael isn't here. But John, would you like to ask any questions of the speakers, please?
Yeah, question for Matt, please. And in fairness and the information of everybody, I did ask Matt this question earlier, so that he could hopefully prepare an answer without any form of bias or predetermination on my part. The 2020 traffic survey confirmed that the Cheltenham Road-Davis Road junction, that Sandown Road goes off effectively 10 yards beforehand, is over capacity. And we witnessed that this morning by going on the site visit, and I'll talk about that later when it comes to debate, Mr. Chairman. The question is that we have that in 2020, but now highways suddenly seem to say that there is no objection, which to me is an absolute and utter total contradiction in terms.
Matt, would you answer that, please?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so the application was originally, or an application on the site was originally submitted in 2013. That was for 126 dwellings. It was refused by the council on the grounds of the impact on the significant gap, and the fact that there were no contributions for Section 106 mitigation. Highways at that time for 126 wasn't used by the council as a reason for refusal. I've had a quick look through the inspector's decision and I can't see that he's raised highways as a reason for supporting the council. I mean, he may not have had to do that because he would have been looking at the council's reasons for refusal, but if he had concerns he would have addressed it. The application was then, another application was submitted in 2020, this time for 61 dwellings. It came before members of the committee and it was refused for similar reasons to the previous one, and the application was then withdrawn. I have found the reasons that were going to be used before it was withdrawn, and again they don't mention highways as a reason for refusal. I have to say I'm unaware of the passage that says that the junction is not suitable for the traffic or for the heavy goods vehicles. All I can say is that the Highways Department have looked at this in detail. They've looked at it both in terms of this proposal and the potential proposed allocation in the SWDPR, so it's been thoroughly reviewed. In a summary, I just briefly summarised what they said in their comments, just to give you an idea of what has been considered. So the applicant submitted information which was reviewed by the Highways Department, confirmed that development impact and junction capacity assessments have been undertaken at the A4184, B4084 Abbey Bridge signalised junction and the A4184 Cheltenham Road, Davis Road, Sandown Road partially signalised junction. The county felt that the approach to demonstrating the development impact on the surrounding local road network was robust, and they don't always say that. It did acknowledge that the proposed development is forecast to result in the further, not insignificant deterioration of the junction performance at the Abbey Bridge junction and the A4184, Cheltenham Road, Davis Road, Sandown Road junction, which already operate under constraint during network and peak hours. However, the performance of the Abbey Bridge junction and the A4184 Cheltenham Road, Davis Road, Sandown Road junction could be improved by optimising the mover signal control and potentially linking the junction signal timings. Overall, it was found that the impact of this development on the network would be moderate. And to allow for the mover system and for these improvements to the timings, one of the obligations in the section 106 is for £10,000 to put towards these improved benefits in terms of the mover system, which will time the traffic lights to work better together. Whilst it may have been said previously in terms of the capacity, it wasn't used by the council. I've checked the inspector's decision, it wasn't used by him as a reason it wasn't acceptable. And we can only go off the robust assessment that county has made at this time based on the information we have at the moment. And that is that we're content that there is capacity in the road network and the impact will be moderate. And you have to bear in mind the only way the Highways Department or we can sustain an objection on highways grounds is if that impact can demonstrably be shown to be significant.
Thank you.
I hope that's helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, I mean, there's going to be other aspects to that, Mr. Chairman, that I will talk about, but that comes in debate, not for questions. The other question is, you were talking about the urban aspect and badges, and that you haven't received at this time a report from the relevant authority. Obviously, that could have a significant impact on this development, dependent upon their report. When do you expect to receive that report, and what impact could it have on this decision to be made today?
So obviously, protection of badges is extremely important. As soon as we were told that there was potentially a set on site, our ecologist went out. She didn't see any evidence of a set from her initial walkover. Obviously, she can't spend as long as a consultant walking around every part of the site, but she went to the location that it was suggested it was there. There may be one on an adjacent site, so because of that, she suggested this precautionary approach, which will ensure that nothing happens on site until the site's been fully surveyed and the adjacent land. Once it's known whether or not, it looks as if there isn't, but there might be on adjacent land, there's a set on the site, then they will have to come up with a mitigation plan of how to deal with that. They'll have to go through, if they need the relevant licences with the relevant ecology bodies, and there will have to be a firm plan in place that's approved by all of our ecologists and people who are experts in biodiversity that will be able to deal with this set in a way that will protect those badges. I'm not an expert, so I don't know if it can be moved, but certainly they'll have to have this mitigation in place. If it affects the scheme, then the applicants, and there's no way of mitigating it, the applicants will have to come back with a revised plan, because they can't commence until we've approved that mitigation.
This is on page 63, I think, condition 7.
Yes,
It says it's governed by a condition.
Right.
John.
So with that, I take on board what you've said there, Matt, and thank you very much. But a part of the question was, has there been any indication when they might have this report available?
Sorry if I missed that. There isn't at the moment, because it's a condition on the permission, so the report will have to come in before commencement, but that's all we know at this time.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Clatworthy. Are there any other further questions to the speakers? Councillor Kersey.
Chairman, thank you. Councillor Clatworthy has drawn out the part about this £10,000 in the section 106 for the improvement of the junction. What does £10,000 get? Clearly it states that you want to have, that it's expected that highways want to have the traffic lights put in sync or whatever, but is that what £10,000 gets? Do we got any idea what £10,000 gets us?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know, I'm afraid. As I'm not an expert in scooter or mover systems, so I'm not 100% aware of exactly what that will buy, but the county will be required to only request what is necessary to mitigate the development.
I think county requested that. You want to ask the...
I think the applicant is happy to answer as well.
Okay,
Chairman.
thank you.
Yeah, apologies, I didn't want to step in if it was inappropriate. Yeah, so as it's to do with the mover technology is where real-time traffic data gets fed into the traffic lights. So it will be known where the longest queue is, what the stop and go period should be for the green and red traffic lights. So it's responsive to the active situation on the ground rather than at the moment where it is just on a signalled time loop. And that's what that 10,000 does. It improves the ability for those traffic lights to react to current conditions.
Okay, every day's a school day. Thank you, Chairman. Just one more question
You don't
on...
get much for your 10,000 these days, you know,
No, you
Councillor
don't.
Kersey.
But
Yes.
then if it aids the traffic flow, then
It would help.
I'm sure we all think it's worth £10,000.
You have another question?
Yes, please. In this report, the Section 106 contributions that have been asked for aren't repeated. Can I just confirm that there haven't been any changes in the Section 106 amounts and the reasons?
Yes, sorry, bear with me a second. I shall just have a look. Yes, there are no changes. It's the same as was in the previous committee reports.
Thank you. Other further, Councillor Clatworthy?
I'm intrigued with that image that's on the screen. I can't identify where that is. Can somebody help me, please?
Mr. Gay?
Yeah, so if you come in down the access road from Hamilton Road and keep going straight ahead to the public open space, that's the view as if you're still in that corner looking up toward the plots that overlook the open space where that swale feature runs along that boundary continuously. Does that help answer the question?
Okay, yeah, it was a bit, I appreciate it was an image, and that's to the future, but it was just a little bit confusing at that moment because all I saw was houses, a road, etc., and I couldn't identify where that was from what we saw this morning.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. Hopefully that clarifies where, but happy to take further question.
Thank you. Any further questions? No? Well, thank you. Thank you very much for speaking. If you'd like to go back to your seats, that's fine. Thank you. Councillor Clatworthy, would you like to speak? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. We all saw this morning the huge problem of congestion, and before we approached the snarl up of traffic, I did mention to members who were on the minibus that this was normal. Yes, there was an extra set of lights coming out of Sandown Road, but I had established that the temporary lights had been put to coordinate with what the delays would be with the real lights. So the congestion that we experienced this morning is what the people of Evesham have to contend with day in, day out. I accept that this has come back as deferment and people are looking primarily at design, etc. But the word there is also layout, and I have to include the word layout to mean access as well, because it's a part of the layout of the whole site, and that will also be the access point. Now I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs very quickly, Chairman, from an email that I received yesterday, and then I'll tell you where it came from. Effect of the deferral. The meeting recording shows that the committee followed the council's adopted procedure. Correct. No procedural unfairness or improper restriction of debate is evident. The October deferral concerned design matters, and the officer report included substantive sections on design, layout, street scene and open space. When the application returns after deferral, members often focus on whether the reasons for deferral have been addressed. This is standard and lawful practice, as the purpose of a deferral is to obtain further information or amendments on specific points. That's all accepted, and I have no contention with that. This is the next bit that I was trying to talk to people about earlier, which I think is very relevant personally. Moreover, members are not legally constrained to consider only those matters. Their discretion remains unfettered. They may consider any relevant material consideration equally. They are not required to rehearse every issue previously debated. And on those grounds, I suggest that, as I mentioned as a passing comment this morning, everything remains on the table, because it is saying that members have the discretion to continue debating other matters. So I now come to my concerns regarding the access, which we saw is very, very restrictive, and a comment that had been passed to me from the proposed 6-metre access road along Sandown Road and Hamilton Road was insufficient and too narrow, particularly as this was the sole access point for all construction traffic, which would include large construction vehicles, articulated lorries delivering materials, and the existing residential access point. And this follows on from the comment that I was making when I was asking questions. So there are issues with the access. There are serious issues with the road makeup and its width, and construction traffic moving through to the construction site. Also, as we stood just through the access place in the hedge, that is a bridle way, but as you go down towards Pershall Road on it, it moves from being a bridle way to a footpath. So I'm not quite sure what you do if you're on horseback. Do you have to get off and walk it? But, you know, there is a difference between bridle way and footpath. But as you go further down there, and I appreciate members didn't go down there this morning, but on the right, as we stepped up to the level where we were talking, that is like a bank all the way down. And when there is heavy rainfall, the rain comes off the bank and into the gardens of Lingfield Road, which is obviously the road that runs parallel. And potentially, I consider that is going to continue to happen, because if rain soaks through the ground, but you still get flooding, as soon as you put tarmac and concrete there, they ain't going to have anywhere to go except down and into those gardens, and those people are going to be even further constrained. I understand that the Bridleway footpath is going to be rediverted. Now, okay, that might appear to be a minor point to people, but people on horseback or using it, or even dog walkers, are going to find it very difficult now to be circumnavigating around the estate as opposed to as they are currently. Sorry, I'd like to just quickly go back, if I could please, to the question on highways, where in the minutes of the previous time this came to this committee, there was a paragraph there where the perceived increase of vehicle traffic was 1 vehicle per 1.5 seconds. Now, I think we all witnessed this morning that that is just simply pie in the sky, and I'm not quite sure who wrote that, but maybe it was in dreamland. But for me, it certainly wasn't reality. As has been identified by the speaker previously, they're just coming to the completion of 500 properties on the Blur estate further down Cheltenham Road, which increases the capacity using Cheltenham Road and those traffic lights at that junction, and therefore causing great congestion coming out of Sandown Road into the main highway. The college is also going to have extra housing proposed, and there was also a site proposal on Corn Mill Road, all of which go off Cheltenham Road, and therefore the capacity of vehicles is going to rise considerably. And as I've already stated, the traffic survey in 2020, the Davis Road, Cheltenham Road junction is already over capacity. And it's going to increase by, well, the estimate has got to be in the region of 400 extra vehicles. Okay, mainly at the early part of the day and the latter part of the day, but as a resident of Evesham, and I use that road all the time, you're always going to be delayed there. And when I talked also about, and Matt referred to the inspector on the appeal that happened in the past. I've got it stated here. The inspector agreed the network could not cope. At this time, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and if it's all right, I'll come back with any other comments after I've listened to what other councillors have to say.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Campbell. I know you're concerned about the traffic. Regarding the drainage, there are conditions in the report regarding drainage. The difficulty with the traffic, as Matt McConville said, is that highways don't have an objection, but obviously, from your point of view, there are questions to ask. So I appreciate that. Thank you for your comments. I'll open it up.
Very quickly, I would say I don't agree with the comments of highways.
No, I accept that. I'll open it to to the committee for general debate. Thank you. Have we anybody who'd like to start it off? Anybody? Councillor, yes, okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Sims, followed by Councillor Coetzee.
Thank you, Chair. As a horse rider, I'm acutely aware that our bridleways are being eroded regularly, and I just hope that there is consideration about where the new proposed bridleway is going to be, because it is really important for horse riders. We are in a minority, but are not in areas of sort of danger and lots of traffic, so that's a real concern for me. Thank you for highlighting it.
Thank you. Councillor Coetzee.
Chairman, thank you. I'm extremely pleased that this committee deferred this application last time, and the fact that it actually took this committee to defer the application to get the applicant to actually change the internal sizes of the properties is something that is slightly concerning. That if we hadn't deferred this, then those internal sizes wouldn't have been achieved. But moreover, it would have meant that the occupancy on that 40% of affordable housing would not have been achieved to the right level, and to thereby not meeting the housing needs that they were meant for. So that is a real concern. What I would have loved to ask the applicant, but they did answer it for me, but fundamentally it comes down to money and viability. Obviously, what I would have liked to have seen is that the whole of the scheme complied with the internal standards, that then complied with what's on our housing register for the occupancy levels. But from a policy perspective, I understand that that's not possible. So I welcome the changes that have been made in the layout to resolve the situation with the houses that are adjacent to the development. And I welcome the changes to the internal sizes, although I would have rather that it had come to us in the way that it should have done it in the first place. I've heard everything really that I totally understand Councillor Clackworthy's concerns about the traffic. We all spend many hours of our life there that we're never going to get back, looking into the nursing home windows because there's nowhere else to look as you queue along Cheltenham Road. So I completely understand that. The way that we're constrained is that we have to go on highways as the statutory consultee and they as the expert. It's interesting to hear that £10,000 is going to get us the intelligent traffic lights. I'd like to think that, bear in mind all the congestion in Evesham, that that's something that we've already got in place. And that does actually take me on to County Councillor Sam Bastow, who unfortunately still hasn't had any application or anything involved in this application, because within the Section 106 agreement, we still have a contribution of £62,000 for active travel infrastructure, which is due to go to Hampton Bridge. And we know that County Councillor Sam Bastow, as the local divisional member, is against Hampton Bridge being built, which means that £62,000 would go back into the developers' pockets. So the key things around this development really sit around, the concerns that remain sit very much around the fact about traffic and congestion and all the things that go along with that, which, you know, we in this committee, based on the responses that highways have given, there's nothing else that really we can do within that. From a housing numbers point of view, yes, we're in the situation about the 5-year housing land supply. Yes, this application is different because it's 100% affordable housing, but now the internal space has been changed. It does mean obviously that it meets that 40% affordable housing, but then we also need to think that this is an allocation within the South Worcestershire Development Plan review. So notwithstanding the fact that we're in the 5-year housing land supply situation, then this allocation would potentially be going forward anyway. It's just that it's coming forward with 100% affordable housing. So on that basis, I would propose approval in line with the officer recommendation, but with the change that the Section 106 money that's requested is for active travel infrastructure and is not specifically for Hampton Bridge, so that it goes straight back into the developers' pockets if Councillor Bastow gets his way and Hampton don't get their bridge.
Thank you, Councillor Kersey. Have we any more comments, please, on this one? No more comments from anybody. I'm afraid, Councillor Hardman, I'm afraid you can't really take part since you were late, but we appreciate you coming. And you won't be able to vote on this one, by the way. You can leave it to the next one. Any other comments? Would you like to come back, John?
Okay. Yeah, I understand what our colleague, Councillor Kersey, is saying. And yes, obviously people do realise that I have an issue with the highways aspect of this. I just find it very, very difficult to comprehend how 5 years ago they can consider that there was an overcapacity and that there were problems about it, but now they don't seem to have any worries about, and they seem to flip-flop and flip-flop like nothing. And we almost have to be beholden to what highways say, and it almost beggars the situation that if there's an application and highways say no objection, why are we sitting here? Because we're just going to get steamrolled by highways. And at this moment in time, I have to say I have no confidence in highways, and I am absolutely disgusted, as I have mentioned on numerous occasions before, that they can't even be bothered to turn up at these meetings to answer highways questions which come into every application. Thank you, Chairman.
We will echo those views to the Director of Planning again, which I know they are concerned about not turning up. Councillor Tucker, followed by Councillor Morris. Thank you.
Chairman, I think it's time for a decision, and I would second the Councillor Kersey's proposal to approve in accordance with the recommendations, and also her conditions about the Section 106. I think that's a very sensible alteration in view of the changing prospects for the Hampton Bridge.
Thank you very much. Councillor Morris.
Yeah, my comment is sort of along those lines. I've pulled up the report from last time, and it is very specific about saying request a contribution of £60,000 towards the Hampton Active Travel Bridge. Are we going to be able to make that so that if the funding is already in place for that, that £62,000 is redeployed?
So I'll ask Tish Karen to outline that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there is an ability to include some more flexibility within that. I think the request mirrors what was requested by the County Council at the time, but ultimately, as long as it's reasonable, so we'll have to think about the wording, but as long as it's within the vicinity of an alternative project, I'm sure the developer wouldn't have an issue with that. Obviously, we'd have to negotiate that through the 106, but that would be obviously the direction from committee.
Thank you. Before we go to a vote, any more comments at all? Right, thank you. We have a proposal from Councillor Kersey and seconded by Councillor Tucker. Rachel.
Thank you, Chair. So the proposal is to approve the application in line with officer recommendation, subject to necessary changes to the active travel infrastructure contribution in the Section 106 agreement. All those in favour? In favour. All those against? 2 against. Motion is carried, Chair.
Thank you very much, and thank you to those speakers who came. If you'd like to stay, you're welcome. Otherwise, by all means, go. Thank you. Before we move on to the next item, we'll have a quick break after this, unless you're okay for the moment. This is item 8, planning application 25/00107, which is the milestone ground at Charles Wickham Road, Broadway. We have 2 speakers, Kevin Beasley, Clerk to Broadway Parish Council, and Sarah Butterfield. If you'd like to come and sit at the front, thank you. And I'll ask, yes, anybody else there? That's fine. I'll ask the case officer, Gillian McDermott, to outline the application. Thank you, Gillian.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to draw members' attention to the update sheet, because there's quite a lot of information on it. There's additional consultation responses from Housing, the Worcestershire Wildlife Trust and the Worcestershire Regulatory Services. There's also a new representation received from New Barn Close Surgery, further information from the applicant and agent, and there's an update to the officer appraisal in terms of affordable housing mix, ecology and wildlife, land contamination, and in regard to the sports pitches. There's also additional information on drainage stroke ecology and the construction management plan. And there's also amended conditions 23 and 25, 26 as well, and an additional condition 48 in terms of the public open space play area and in regard to broadband. And there's also an amended recommendation. So just going through the presentation. This application is for 113 dwellings and replacement sports pitches, including a 3G sports pitch and clubhouse, new vehicle access, public open space, landscaping and other associated infrastructure at Milestone Ground, Charles Wickham Road, Broadway. As you can see from this map, the site lies to the south-east of the district and south-east of Evesham. It's 8.3 hectares in size. It's in the west part of Broadway and to the southwest side of Station Road. To the southeast part of the site, there are playing fields, existing playing fields at the moment, and the site wraps around New Barn Surgery, which is along Station Road. It's within the development boundary of Broadway, and it's an allocated site as part of the development plan. And it's also within the Broadway Neighbourhood Plan development boundary. This just shows an aerial photograph so you can see the site in its context. To the northwest of the site, there's a touring caravan site, and there's also Broadway Gravel Pit, which is a local green space and a local wildlife site. To the southwest of the site is agricultural land, and on the opposite side of Station Road there are dwellings facing Station Road. To the southeast there is Broadway Conservation Area, which lies approximately 50 metres from the site, and also the Cotswolds National Landscape. This just shows the the land use plan, which shows the green infrastructure areas and also the pitches in yellow with the 3G pitch in dark green. And the areas in purple show the new pavilion and parking. This shows the affordable housing in regard to the layout. So there'll be 45 affordable housing units. 31 of those in blue would be social rent and 14 would be intermediate, and they're shown in green. This shows the materials and boundary treatment. In terms of the materials, the Station Road properties facing that road and the main access road would be comprised of natural stone. The remaining dwellings will be a mixture of reconstituted stone, red brick, render, and there'll be a limited number of cladded properties and one thatched property. In regard to the boundary treatments, there would be dry stone walling to the front of the more prominent units, stone piers to either side of the access point along Station Road, 0.9 metre high metal railings to the front of Station Road properties, and there'd be some brick walling and acoustic fences to the boundaries of the properties which are closest to the football pitches. There would also be provision of hedgehog highways within the close board fencing boundaries, which is recommended by Condition 32. This shows landscaping scheme, part of it, landscaping scheme in the north part of the site. Basically, it shows along the northwest boundary there would be the retention of the existing trees and vegetation along that boundary, and there would be further tree and mixed scrub planting to act as a buffer to the caravan site. There would also be new tree planting along Station Road, and there would be street trees within the development itself. This also shows that the Bronze Age pit alignment, which is indicated by the red dots along the main access route, and the access had to be re-sited along Station Road to take account of this. This is the middle part of the site. It shows there would be orchard tree planting on the top of this image as part of the public open space. There would also be native mixed scrub and tree planting to the southwest of the 3G pitch along Charles Wickham Road. This is the south part of the site. Again, there will be a retention of majority of the trees along the boundaries, and further tree and mixed scrub planting to act as a buffer. Oh, sorry, sorry, start again. The majority of the trees along Station Road will be retained, and there'll be new tree planting along the Hoggin pathway, which is sort of goes through the middle of the site, along with street trees. This just shows a view of the site northwards from Station Road, and a view south-eastwards, also along Station Road. These shows the visualisations from Station Road. So the top image is as it exists at the moment, and the bottom one is proposed, shows how it would be seen after year 15. Again, this is another visualisation. You can look up towards the Cotswolds National Landscape from this view, and at proposed year 15, there would obviously be houses there. This just shows the street scenes. At the top is AA, which is along Station Road. So this shows the majority of dwellings would face Station Road, and there would be variation in terms of the design and their form and the materials. And the street scene BB at the bottom is the rear part of the site looking towards the northeast. Again, these show visualisations as part of the submitted LVIA. This is from the public right-of-way, the Cotswolds Way, looking northwest. The top image shows it as existing at the moment, and the bottom shows it at year 15. There's another viewpoint 5 from the Broadway gravel pit. The top part is as it exists at the moment, and then the bottom is another visualisation, and you can see Charles Wickham Road in the background there. This is a viewpoint 6 from the LVIA. This is from Charles Wickham Road looking eastwards. So you've got the gravel pit on the left side of the image and New Barn Surgery there as well. And again, the bottom image is looking along Charles Wickham Road there. This just shows the site section with New Barn Surgery. The top image is the view from outside the surgery towards Highgate Court properties. And then the other image on the right-hand side of the screen is from one of the consultation room windows looking out towards the site. The section drawing there at the bottom shows the distances between the nearest plots to the surgery. So plot 25 would be 10.8 metres, and the plot 35 will be 10.6 metres. And both of these dwellings would actually be single-storey dwellings. Just go through some of the elevations. So this shows open market 2-bedroom terraces at the top, and the bottom would be open market 2-bed flats above garages. This elevation shows the open market detached dwellings along Station Road, and the bottom one shows a detached unit in a prominent location next to the pathway. Again, this shows 1-bed social flat rented units at the top, and the bottom one is 2-bed social rent units. Another example of some of the elevations, intermediate dwellings at the top and social rent properties at the bottom. And these are the 2 plots that I mentioned earlier that are single-storey. They're both intermediate 2-bed units. And the bottom one is a social rent unit. This just shows the parking allocation layout. So there'll be a total of 234 car parking spaces. They're shown in blue. And there'll also be 10 visitor spaces shown in pink. And there'll also be 46 spaces for the use of the football club, which are shown in green. This just shows the visibility displays. So there'll be it'll be 92 metres in a northwesterly direction and 102 metres in a southeasterly direction. The bottom left screen of your screen shows the access point, which will be 5.5 metres in width, and there'll be a 2 metre wide footway on both sides of the access road. This just shows the vehicle tracking provided for refuse vehicles in various bin carrying distances. I'll just go through some photographs. This is a view from the car park northwards. This is the Broadway Club building and toilet building. This is the existing football pitches. And this is from the car park towards New Barn Surgery. Another view of the car park. Also from the car park looking north towards the football pitches. Again, this shows the site layout. And so that the recommendation is as shown on the update sheet, to delegate authority to the Director of Planning Infrastructure to grant planning permission subject to the completion of a Section 106 lead agreement to secure obligations and planning conditions listed, details allowing for any subsequent amendments to the obligations and planning conditions as required by the Director of Planning Infrastructure, and in consultation with Sport England as required, and subject to a satisfactory response being received from the Worcestershire Wildlife Trust in respect of details required by conditions 8, 9 and 10. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Kevin Beasley, you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. The Parish Council would firstly like to thank the applicant for taking into consideration the previous comments the Parish Council, other organisations and residents made, and in making the amendments within this application. The Parish Council is pleased to see the amount of 31 social rent and 14 intermediate dwellings are included within the development, which can only be a benefit to the younger families within the village, enabling them to live locally rather than having to move away. The amendment to the dwellings along the front of the site now facing Station Road. This is, in the opinion of the Parish Council, gives a better appearance to the site, being an important entrance road to the village. The Parish Council, however, must still object to this application for a number of reasons. The Parish Council is still concerned about the lack of open space within the development itself, which makes the site more urban than rural in appearance. The Parish Council would support the comments submitted by the Cotswold National Landscape, which states that due to the amount of location and layout of the proposed development, it would not conserve and enhance the landscape and scenic beauty of the C&L, as required by SWDP 23 and MPFF paragraph 189. The inclusion of more green space, open space within the development itself will not only greatly increase the appearance of the development, but would give residents areas to sit and help create a healthier environment and greater well-being. It is understood that the road will not be adopted. Therefore, the Parish Council are concerned that the access will be restricted and would like assurances that the general public are allowed full access throughout the site. There are also concerns about the width of the road. Should a vehicle park on the road, this will restrict any traffic to one way only. There are only 10 parking spaces allocated within the site. This is surely not sufficient for a development of this size. Most dwellings have 2 parking spaces. Most owners of these dwellings will own more than one vehicle. So where do all the visitors park? Because of previously mentioned, the vehicles are parking on the road, this will cause issues. We must not forget the access for emergency vehicles and waste collection, which would be readily available and free from obstruction at any time. The Parish Council also have concerns about the access onto the site being onto to Station Road, which is already a busy road with several entrances already onto it. The Parish Council have concerns about the lack of adequate drainage strategy. There are concerns about the potential implications of this site on surface water drainage and whether the present sewage system has sufficient capacity to cope with additional demand. This area has flooded in the past. Any flooding issues would also impact the neighbouring parish of Charles Wickham, and any overflow from this site is not protecting Charles Wickham via the flood alleviation scheme. With regards to the landscaping of the development, the Parish Council would like assurances that trees used are mature, as the type of species noted on the plans are not fast growing and of any size. The Parish Council would like more information about the proposed play area and orchard and would like assurances that these areas are available to all residents, not just those in the development. And can I finally add, the Parish Council would ask the developer to give consideration to providing the best for the present and future residents of Broadway, not just making money out of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sarah Butfield, you can add on another 10 seconds if you want to. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm speaking this afternoon on behalf of Spitfire Homes, who are the applicant for the proposed development. The principle of residential development here is acceptable and established. The site is within the defined settlement boundary for Broadway, which is a Category 1 village, and the site is allocated in the adopting and again proposed to be allocated in the emerging SWDP for the mixed use proposed. It is noted that the proposed quantum of development here is for a higher number of residential dwellings than the allocations. However, the applicant has undertaken detailed technical work that has demonstrated to the satisfaction of the Environment Agency and Lead Local Flood Authority that more of the site falls outside of the flood zone, which has increased the developable area of the site. Alongside delivery of 113 dwellings, the proposals will deliver replacement sports pitches for Broadway Football Club and the community, including a 3G sports pitch and a new clubhouse. The existing pitches are owned by the football club, and whilst they are open and people can access them, technically they are private land. There is also no usable clubhouse currently available. The proposed new pitches, clubhouse and facilities will be leased to the football club to support their continued growth and ongoing expansion. Indeed, they will manage and maintain the facilities. However, the football club are agreeable to a community use agreement which will enable the facilities to be available for use by the community. That availability will be set out and agreed in the community use agreement required by the proposed condition in your officer report. Site access will be taken from Station Road, including 3 pedestrian access points off Station Road and also off Charles Wickham Road, providing access to the village centre and public transport links. A network of pedestrian links will run through the site, providing access to the dwellings, public open spaces and also to the sports facilities. Green infrastructure will be delivered in excess of the 40% policy requirement, including public open spaces, a community orchard and a sensory trail. The layout has also been recognisant of the history of the site and archaeological findings, which will be preserved in situ where appropriate, and the Council's archaeology officer is supportive. The proposal will provide policy-compliant 40% affordable housing with the tenure split agreed with your housing officer. The proposed development will deliver a range of policy-compliant financial obligations totalling £1.2 million, plus affordable housing and B&G delivery. All of the technical matters have been considered and addressed, including drainage, transport, landscape, noise, heritage, trees, design, ecology, BNG and land contamination. There are no outstanding technical matters and no outstanding objections from any statutory consultees. In summary, the proposed development would deliver residential dwellings plus replacement and improved sports facilities and affordable housing on this allocated site, boosting housing land supply in Wychavon in a sustainable location. There are no harms arising from the development that would significantly and demonstrably outweigh the benefits, and planning permission should be granted. We would ask you to support this proposal in line with your officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The ward members are Councillor Kersey and Councillor Sims. You can also ask questions, by the way, of Andrew Fell, if you want to, and Fran. Don't forget them, otherwise they'll nod off on the left. So, Councillor Kersey, have you any questions to ask the speakers?
Yes, please, Chairman, and I promise I most certainly won't forget Andrew and Fran. They will have a very comprehensive question from me, don't worry. So to the applicant, first of all, please. I was interested to know that you very proudly said that it was exceeding the 40% green infrastructure. So I'll put a different question to you. If you look, that's a perfect picture to have on the screen at the moment, because clearly the application is in 2 parts. One which is for development for homes, and the other one is for the Broadway Football Club. And we all know, the arrangements behind that. But can you tell me, please, within the actual development of the houses, what is the percentage of green infrastructure and the green infrastructure that is open and recreational?
So we actually have sat whilst the previous application was ongoing and thought this might be a question that had come up, as things were around in your mind. But I believe that if you took out the football pitches, but left the sort of public walkways that we're proposing down the side, and included the rest of the residential areas, the green infrastructure would be at about 28 to 30%. But of course, as set out in your officer's report, the green infrastructure is considered across the whole site.
Okay, obviously this application has been in the making for quite some time, and I'm surprised to hear you quote 28 to 30%, because I'm pretty sure that it was closer to 20 if we take out use of anything to do with the football pitches. So when we talk about walkways, yeah, okay, so I'm questioning that 28 to 30%, and you are right to think that that question would be asked because it's a key consideration around this application, but I'm surprised to know that you were only thinking about it in the last application that you'd be asked that, because that is a key consideration for this application. So from a can you be more specific, because I'm sure that this is not 28 to 30%. So you're including walkways, are you talking about green verges? If you look at that, we're basically talking about green infrastructure as the play area and the orchard pretty much. So what would you say that green infrastructure is?
Yeah, so there's also, and it's set out in the design and access statement, on the right-hand side of the pitches, there will be a walkway down onto Childs Wycombe Road as well. So all of that, and then the sensory trail all the way down to the football club, plus obviously everything else you can see.
Okay, I've never heard walkways described as green infrastructure before as open and recreational, but okay, I've asked you the question twice. Could you explain to me, so because of the issue around the green infrastructure, it's been negotiated through this application that there will be community access to the sports pitches. Can you tell me what use the 3G pitch will be for sport other than football, please?
I believe it's set out in your officer's report. But as I understand, because the pitches will be developed to Football Association standards, there are limits on what they can be used for.
Yes, I understand that. Although, because it's community use, the community isn't necessarily going to be, all 100% of them are going to be football fans. Do you know specifically, taking into account the funding and what have you, but do you know to what degree that it could be used as a multi-use pitch?
You might just need to give me a minute to find the answer. Sorry.
I'm gathered that's one of the conditions. Excuse me. Sorry about that. In conjunction with Sports England.
It is, Chairman, in 2 degrees. One is around the community use and the other is with Sports England and with the FA. But my question is, what sports other than football can the pitch be used for? Fundamentally, I'm asking, can it be used as a multi-use sports facility?
Do you want to take that one or not?
Sorry, you might have found it, Gillian. I don't know if you want to take that.
Well, in the report on page 168, it does say, Broadway Football Club have confirmed that they are able to accept the principle of the pitch's use beyond it being used for football. And this can include informal football sessions, low impact activities such as walking football, and training sessions for other sports. It couldn't be used, for example, to host formal hockey or rugby matches, for example, but it could be used for practicing, for those types of activities.
Okay, thank you. So we're up to football and walking football fundamentally. So, okay, thank you. With regards to the off-site BNG, do you know where that's intended to be?
We don't, but obviously there is a requirement for it to be delivered as close as possible. And in discussions during the application with the council's ecology and landscape officers, they have offered up a range of facilities that would be available that could be used, and that would be determined through the conditions and the requirements, and that would be, normal post-permission point.
And the sites that have been offered up, do you know what sort of radius they are away from the site?
I don't, I'm sorry.
Okay. We've heard from the Parish Council that the understanding is the road is not going to be adopted. Is the road going to be adopted? And if not, why not?
So the road adoption is something that I think ideally would be adopted, but the inclusion of street trees then brings us into conflict with Worcestershire County requirements. So in order to include street trees for a better design, in this case the road would not be adopted.
Okay, thank you. That's fair enough. And then the million-dollar question to Andrew and Fran, please. There has understandably been a lot of concern around the application in respect of flooding, in drainage. We've got some, dare I say, a bit of a glib comment really in the report. Sorry, Gillian, you know that I think it's a bit that it basically says that Severn Trent are now happy with the arrangements in place. Well, that doesn't give us a lot of surety when we know that there a lot of residents already have concerns, even though there's been extensive investment in the flooding precautions and everything that's gone into that. And the Charles Wickham Road, which we saw today, which obviously the access to the football club comes off, the manhole cover, when there's even remotely heavy rain, that manhole cover blows. So as it stands at the moment, it's not fit for purpose. And then obviously we add all these houses onto it. So Andrew, notwithstanding, we know that you are the drainage engineer as opposed to Severn Trent and everybody that we want you to comment for. And we know we put a lot on you, but could you please talk us through what your understanding of the conditions that are in place and how you believe that this would work in practice?
Through you, Chairman. I'll start with what I do know, and that will stick with the surface water and the flooding side first of all. So we've been looking at this application for an awful long time, and at the early stages the site was quite extensively covered with flood zone 2. There's been a lot of work going on behind the scenes with the developer and the EA to model the watercourses and the catchments upstream. And this probably certainly predates the flood alleviation scheme, which is further upstream. So there's obviously been a lot of work going on where the EA are now happy that the flood zones have reduced on that site, and presumably the flood zone now probably matches the southern extent of the built environment on that plan there. There was also questions being raised about the usability stroke suitability of the flood alleviation scheme, what effect that has, and unfortunately we don't have the data or the information to know whether this model includes that or whether that is kept separate. So in theory there might be a bit of leeway in terms of storage on in and around that area, that flooding doesn't occur should that scheme fail upstream. Surface water will be discharged through various such features, and I believe we've now got third-party agreement that it can go into the wetlands. There was mention before from the parish council of concern that surface water could add to issues downstream. The scheme that's been put before us basically restricts all flows to the site. So the greenfield runoff rate is what comes off the site. So in theory, there's no more water coming off the site and therefore won't have a detrimental effect on the main river going downstream. Foul-wise, I don't deal with the foul side, but I've had a look at the foul drainage and I've read the report. And basically the foul sewers are coming through on the eastern boundary of the wetlands and the football pitches, and it's connecting not into the larger 1200 diameter pipe, but into the smaller 9-inch pipe that runs along Charles Wickham Road. And again, Severn Trent have been very, very explicit in that no connection to the foul system should be made onto the bigger pipe. It has to go to the 9-inch. Again, I don't have the details. We can only go on what Severn Trent have told us. Thank you, Andrew. Is that all right? Then I'll come on to the second ward member. Sorry, I hadn't forgotten you, Councillor Sims. Do we have any questions for the speakers or to the drainage? Yes, yes.
Sorry, yes I do, please, Chair, thank you. Just finishing from Andrew, there was a third party, and perhaps Gillian, bring you on this, there's a third party agreement with the developer and the yes. Is that been completed? Are we yeah, that has. That's fine. So that's all shored up. Gillian, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I have a couple of questions, please. The third generation pitch to the applicant, Sarah, if that's okay. Sorry, my apologies. 3G pitches are multi-use games areas, muggers in effect. And let me just quote, versatility suitable for football, rugby, hockey, and multi-use games area, of all sorts. And my reason for pursuing this, and the fact that the parish council would like this tied in with, I think, condition 25 for community use agreement, is that, you know, the football is fantastic and the club are benefiting greatly and the young people surrounding the area will benefit. But it would be very nice if there were other amateur groups that could hire the 3G pitch for those other activities. And also that would be a useful income generation for the football club. Can you please ensure that that pitch is not just football or rugby or walking football, but is accessible for all types of sports, because that is what they are there for. If that.
Sorry, Chair, you carry on.
Up to you.
So what I was going to say was I think that both the football club and the applicant would be keen for it to be as available to all as possible. The issue where the balance will need to come in is that for the clubs, for the club to meet Sport England requirements in terms of the football club's operation, that pitch will need to be of a certain specification. So I think, as Gillian mentioned, I don't think there is any issue with it hosting training sessions for other sports, but it couldn't host matches. So I wouldn't want to say too much, but I would imagine that it would allow for other activities, but we would need to confirm that.
Yeah, no, literally amateur, you know, groups to play hockey, etc. That's all, that they can hire it, you know, in the appropriate times.
Yeah, and as I understand, for training sessions, that would be fine.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you very much. Just querying the affordable homes, please. And there's some, I know we've just got a new update. Could you clarify the affordable homes, please? And we're going to definitely have 9 shared ownership, and there are some discounted homes. Can you explain that, please?
Yeah, I think you. Put your microphones, yeah.
Sorry, basically there have been ongoing discussions between the housing team and the agent in terms of the intermediate affordable units, and so it has been agreed that there would be a mix of 9 shared ownership and 5 discount market sales, and that would be controlled with the Section 106 agreement.
I wonder if I just come back. So the discount market houses, or you buy them for 20 to 50% less, and then you cannot resell them for any, there's no uplift in the sales. Can you just explain that, please?
I'm not an expert in this type of housing, but I understand that there's a standard 30% discount level for these types of properties.
Would you like to take that?
Yeah, just to confirm that, yeah, they're discounted, and then there's they're secured as affordable housing, so then they come back, so the stock isn't lost in the same sense as other. If that makes sense, thank you.
Just come back, please. And the intermediate housing, I'm not sure what that is. I've not heard that before.
The intermediate housing, it would be in 2 strands. It would be 9 would be shared ownership, and 5 would be discount market sale.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to, in terms of the road not being adopted by the County Council, will you be setting up a management company for that to be?
Sorry, yeah, there would need to be a management company to manage, but there is no, just to clarify a parish council point, there would be no intention that it wouldn't be open for anyone to walk down.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Shall we have Councillor Morris first before Councillor Kersey? Councillor Morris? These are questions to the speakers or to the
Yeah, okay, thank you. It's a question for Councillor Beasley. I'm picking up on your concern about the availability of the open space being available to residents, current residents. Could you kind of, within the existing site, what are residents generally using that space for at the moment? I mean, I'm presuming they have access to it.
Well, at the moment, the estate isn't built, so we don't know the answer to that one. But looking at what is there...
Sorry, can I just clarify? What I mean is that area, the football pitches as they are at the moment, do residents generally walk across those? Do they have access to them at the moment or not?
They don't have access to the football pitches at the moment because it's private land. But our argument is that if that, where the housing is proposed to be built, if there were more open spaces on there, it would make the area more attractive to residents and give them a healthier, well-being life. That's the. If there was a nice area in the middle where you could have seats, where you could sit, chat with your neighbours, etc., that would make such a difference to the health and well-being of the people that are proposed to live on that site.
Right, okay, so can I have clarification from the developer? Because the way it's been described to me, it seems to me that there will potentially be a bigger open area than what exists at the moment that will be accessible to all of Broadway residents, where the councillor Beasley has just confirmed Broadway residents currently have no access to the site. Is my understanding correct?
Yeah, so forgive me if I'm going back to basics, but so currently there's obviously the football pitches, which as you've heard are private land, not accessible, so there's no current open space. The residential development will provide areas of open space, including the sort of community orchard, and then what we've termed as sort of a sensory trail running along the northern side of the football pitches as well. And that will be able to have equipment in it, such as benches and sort of I think it's called play as you go sort of things for children to get involved with and access. And then there will be the football pitches, which whilst they will still be managed by the football club, there will be a community use agreement so that they will be available at times for hire or for use by the local community or local community groups.
Okay, thank you. That's what I got from your description, but I was confused because of what Councillor Beasley said. Can I ask a question about the travel ban? Condition 27, because I have asked this question of Gillian. I have a little bit of concern with that because the condition requires a change of modal shift, and I don't know how you achieve that without having without increasing the infrastructure. And Gillian has confirmed to me that there will be no additional 106 funding. So I'd like to hear from the developer how you actually make that condition actually mean anything without putting money in?
Put me on the spot with that one.
You want to have a think about that one and come back in a minute?
Yeah, if you don't mind, thank you.
So I'll go to Councillor, can I go to Councillor Kersey and then come back to you in a minute?
Chairman, thank you. We'll give the agent a couple of moments because I wasn't aware that we have our resident sports expert here, but I have just been notified that Jem Teal is here. So could I ask Jem, please, specifically the 3G pitch, what can be played on it, please?
Good afternoon all. Jem Teal, Head of Projects and Emergency Planning for the Council. So essentially, with regard to sports pitches, there are various definitions and various types of multi-use games area. Specifically in this case, we're talking about rubber crumb. It's only suitable for football, as in football games. It can be used for rugby training. It can be used for rugby games if there's a longer pile put on it, as we've recently done at Prince Henry's. There is no suitable all-weather surface that you can play hockey, football and rugby on. It just doesn't exist. So I just wanted to clarify, because I heard some comments and I just thought it'd be useful if I could chip in terms of what sports would be able to be played on the suggested 3G pitch.
Thank you very much, Jem. Perhaps you should stay a bit longer for planning meetings. Thank you for that. Does that answer your question? Have you got an answer to Councillor Morris?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I have a particularly technical answer for you, but in terms of my knowledge of travel plans, their purpose is to encourage modal shift and do what they can to do that. So that travel plan will include a number of measures to sort of encourage car sharing, use of local public transport, etc., to help reduce car use. I'm not sure I can say too much more than that without being a sort of transport consultant.
Can I pass you on to Kieran for a minute? Kieran?
Yeah, thank you. I was going to say much what the agents had there, but the purpose of it really is to try and get the people to start off on the right foot, to be aware of what opportunities are available, and obviously as part of the assessment of the application, it's considered, or in the officer report anyway, it's considered to be a sustainable location. So then it's building on what's available in the local area and making the opportunities known and available to those new residents. And it's really important that those things are brought to their attention earlier on, because the influence is really key when people move into these areas. Because if the modal shift doesn't happen early, it tends to not happen. So, thank you.
I put a general follow-up on that. I have big concerns with this, because to me that condition is too little too late. I would like to see how we can bring that forward so that when we're considering developments, we actually actively look at things like advisory bike lanes, cycle paths, because there's no money attached to this. You know, you can't have a modal shift. You can't persuade people to do something different if you put no infrastructure in there. And I don't know how we make this happen, but you know, this seemed an opportunity to mention the point. Thank you.
I think that's a question you could bring up at a council meeting as an actual question. Yes. Councillor Kersey.
Chairman, thank you. And Councillor Morris, well, has it ever happened before that I've commended you for one of your questions? But I publicly commend you for your question. So on that basis, I would like to ask Councillor Beasley, if we bear in mind that we're talking about a change of behaviour, but ultimately this would be new behaviour for residents that would be living in any of these properties, would Councillor Beasley be able to hazard a guess for me at what he expects the expected average walking time to be from one of the houses on this development to the nearest shop in Broadway, notwithstanding that we know, of course, that Broadway is a Category 1 village, but to take people out of their cars, how long would it actually take for somebody to walk from one of those houses to a shop where they could get their general groceries, please?
At a guesstimate, I would say to get to one of the major stores, we have the Co-op in the centre of the village, 15 minutes plus.
There we are, depending on your age. Thank you very much for that, and thank you, Councillor Kersey. And are there any more, two more questions? Shall I take Councillor Dyke first, then Councillor Clatworthy?
Thank you very much, Chairman. I don't know whether you were here earlier when we've just given the go-ahead for 62 houses in Evesham. And after rejigging the layout, there are 8 bungalows. On your application for 113 houses, properties, there are 2. And I wondered why you didn't include more, because 2% as opposed to about 11%, I think is unacceptable. And can you at this late stage put some more bungalows in?
I think the response to that is the housing mix has been considered throughout the application and considered acceptable by your officers as set out in the report.
Thank you. Councillor Clatworthy. Councillor
Thank you, Chairman. I'll also, just before I start, American football and lacrosse can also be played on 3D pitches.
We don't play American football here, do we? But never mind.
It says it can be played.
Oh, sorry, it can, yes. Well, perhaps Broadway will start something up.
Right. With the introduction of potentially 113 properties is going to obviously increase the human population greatly. And I see on page 139 there's been concerns raised by the medical centre. I'd like to know what those concerns are. Is there a problem? Is one of their concerns registration of a great number of extra patients, given that this is a village? And do they actually have the capacity for that great increase? And if they haven't, where are they going to go? It might be either Councillor Beasley or the agent, or both would like to comment.
Gillian, would you like to comment on that or not?
Sorry, when you say the concerns of the actual surgery, are you talking about which particular concerns are you
On page 139, under the, however, the parish must still object to an application due to the following. Second from the bottom, concerns raised by the medical centre need to be fully addressed.
The surgery originally expressed concerns in terms of amenity, in terms of the proximity of dwellings to their consultation rooms, and the amended plans have actually addressed those, and they've actually said that they're happy with the proposed changes in the update sheet.
Okay, so supplementary to that then, have any concerns been raised as to whether or not that medical centre can actually cope with the influx of potentially 300 plus human beings into their practice, given that this is a village, not a town? And how far, if they can't do that, where is the nearest practice?
Yes, please.
I don't believe the surgery's concerns only related to the design and not to any capacity for their surgery, as I understand.
Well, in that case, then where would the new residents go for their surgery?
No, as in they didn't raise any issues with capacity. The only issues they raised related to the design of the development and its proximity to the surgery, not to the capacity of the surgery to accept patients.
Beasley.
I have no information as to what their actual capacity is, but I would suggest that 300, potentially 400 additional people will exceed that capacity. I mean, everybody knows that when you go to book a doctor's appointment these days, you're looking at 2 weeks in advance. That is the situation in Broadway at the moment. So with 300, 400 extra, I should imagine that would increase that.
I think it is a supposition, the question. I think the case officer has answered it quite well. The answer is they're happy with that, so they say. So I don't see there's a question. Yes, Kieran.
I just wanted to mention there is a primary healthcare contribution that sorts. I think that's correct, isn't it? So there obviously has been a request in terms of financial contributions for provision within the area. Ultimately, when a consultee responds, it's for them to tell us what capacity needs and how they need that mitigated. And in this case, there has been a request on that front, and that's how it's been addressed. And then that's whether it's expansion of existing surgeries, and I don't know whether that's possible or whether there's other provision. It's a matter for them to then manage.
Yeah, okay, I understand that. My question really was raised around the fact that concerns raised by the medical centre. So what were those concerns? But I think we've had the answers.
We have. Councillor Tucker.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I haven't had a chance to study the drainage details in the level of detail that I would like to have done, so my questions may be a little bit off the mark. But I'd like to ask Andrew, is any part of this scheme within Zone 3?
Thank you, Chairman. No.
I think everything, according to the information that the EA have come up with through the new modelling, and like I said before, whether that includes the scheme upstream, I think flood zone 2 pretty much mirrors the bottom half of the built environment. So anything, if it is flood zone 3, is going to be well south of that towards the road. So there's no drainage infrastructure inside flood zone 3 at all. As in fact, there's no surface water infrastructure in flood zone 2 either.
So the football pitches are potentially in zone 3, is what you're saying?
The football pitches are definitely in flood zone 2. Flood zone 3, again, I've not seen the new flood zone maps to know where flood zone 3 really is.
Right. Okay. And then really, thank you for that. The question arising from that is related to the 3G pitch. Can our developer friend outline exactly how this pitch is constructed?
Sustainable development. Ground investigation reports have been undertaken which have included boreholes, gas groundwater monitoring wells and monitoring...
Find a bucket.
Sorry, can we... It's the honourable member for Tiverton has an up-to-date, completely new machine, obviously. Jem, can I ask you to answer that question, since you're probably the most expert person here?
Okay, so in short, generally speaking, it's excavated to around 50 centimetres, then type 3, type 2, type 1 stone. Then there's a topping layer of tarmac, then a shock pad. The shock pad will influence what sports can be played. If there's no shock pad, you can't play rugby because it's dangerous for knees and tackles and that type of thing. Then the artificial turf carpet goes on. Depending on that pile length is what sports you can do. Sadly, if you want a football surface, you can't really have a hockey surface. It can be played, but mainly it's under 11s hockey or under 9s hockey. I can't see what the current regulations are, but that requires a shorter pile, a longer pile, and if it's a shorter pile, it'll wear out a lot quicker. So from having what could be a 15-year lifespan, if you have a short pile, it could need replacing in seven years or whatever. So that's generally speaking. Then you have your rubber infill. Obviously, the pitch has a 2.4 metre surround, probably going to 3 metres at the end of the goals, and presume it's floodlit. Otherwise, it's... Is this floodlit?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for that.
If I can come back then, that's been very helpful to understand the construction of the 3G pitch, and also obviously the reason why it can't be considered as part of green infrastructure. I mean, if you've got a tarmac layer in there, it's virtually the same as a car park, a tarmac car park. If there is a potential for flooding within that area, then I would be considerably concerned about the use of rubber crumb, because that obviously is less dense than water. And if you have flooding there, then the rubber crumb is likely to be washed off and away into the environment wherever it drains into, that in a situation of a flood. Perhaps if somebody could clarify what might actually happen in that situation.
Yeah. Jem?
Essentially, pitches are now designed to contain rubber crumb. In the future, rubber crumb's likely to be replaced by a plastic-covered balsa, because it's more environmentally sustainable. But pitches are designed to minimise any spill with gravel boards and the way it's laid. So really the only transfer of rubber crumb you get is off the players themselves when they come off.
Thank you.
If I can come back again just then, I'm interested in the BNG contribution. I'm very surprised, frankly, to hear that there has to be off-site provision of BNG on a site of this scale and complexity, and is it not possible that the biological net gain could be achieved within this site through a bit more imaginative approach to the design?
Kieran?
Thank you, Chair. I think the scale of the site and the provision of the pitches is large from that perspective, but the ability then to provide BNG on sites restricted because of the nature of the pitches. So ultimately, there isn't the same scope as in sort of general public open space where you've got more scope to put in more planting and various other bits to achieve that uplift in biodiversity net gain. So I think that's largely the reason. So there is a shortfall in provision, but then that's why the mechanism for off-site's being dealt with. I think ultimately there's not much more that could be fitted in site whilst providing those formal pitches, and that's the balance here.
Councillor Adams, followed by Councillor Sims.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I direct this question, and if you won't take it from me, we've got Jem here. Over the last few years, Jem Teal has put a tremendous amount of time into bringing these 3G football pitches about. The use of them and the want to use these pitches is excelled by, mainly down to the, but dare I say, the girls and the women's football that's come on board so much and the support for that. I mean, if you take the Inkbearer one, for instance, goodness knows how many, you may say, it's being used all the time. That's got lights and all the rest of it. The last time I went there was little kids playing. I should think they were between 6 and 8. The shirts, well, they went down to the floor. I suppose they grow into them, but lovely little kids there. And they're used so much. And we've got the experience now after a few years how they are matching up. But I do assure you this will be used. And there'll be more orders to use this pitch than you wouldn't imagine. They are being in use. There's a lot of money Sports England have put into them. We have here at Wychavon put money into them, and it's good value for money. Can I just direct us? I'm saying the wrong
So
thing.
you're coming to a question yet, Robert?
I did come to the question just to back up what I'm saying.
In terms of 3G need, if that question was directed at me, sorry, Councillor Adams. Essentially, the latest survey work was undertaken by the Football Association in their football facilities planning model. That's identified a need for 2 further 3G pitches within Wychavon.
Thank you. That's a good point. Councillor Sims.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. And following on that, the 3G issue, thank you, Jem, that was absolutely brilliant. And what I was alluding to, because I know for a fact, and I don't know enough about 3G pitches, is that little ones, 8 to 9-year-olds, are using them for different sports. And that is the essence, and that is something that the Parish Council and councillors and residents wish to have a facility for. It is the little ones who want to play, the younger people, under 10s, who want to use that facility. Because, as Rob suggests, they are really, really popular. So actually now I would direct my question to you, please, Sarah, to ensure that that facility, and if we need more 3G pitches, ensure that that provision could be a 15-year pitch or something that can be wider used, because I know they can be for the young under 10s to use.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can say any more other than what I've been told in terms of wider use. But from what you've heard, my understanding is that the pitch could be used by youngsters for various activities, and there is a condition proposed, which is, I think it's still condition 17, about the design and layout of that 3G pitch.
Thank you. Now, we've learned a lot about 3G pitches. We've learned a lot. Can we just get back to any relevant questions about this particular application? Are there any more relevant questions for anybody to ask? Councillor Dyke.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm not sure whether I've seen this or not, but the football pitches, all of them, are not floodlit. Is that correct?
The 3G pitch will probably have to be floodlit, so we've asked for details of that by condition.
Thank you. Are there any more relevant questions for anybody? In which case, thank you for speaking and thank you for your replies, and perhaps you go back to your seats. Thank you. Now we've obviously got two ward members who may both speak. I don't know. Are you both speaking? Are you both speaking? So you have half time each, is that right? Or make it fairly concise, actually, if you could. I'll start off with Councillor Kersey, not for any reason, it's just that her name is nearer the beginning of the alphabet. Councillor Kersey.
Chairman, thank you. I like your very funny joke that we've got a specific time to talk about this extremely complex application, but thank you very much for your comedy. First of all, I'd very much welcome the change in the shared ownership number within this development. And let's look at Broadway as a whole. So you're going to put potentially a whole number of houses into Broadway. And we know that, yes, Broadway is a very attractive place to live. But what that does do is it increases property value. And we have a lot of people who want to live in Broadway. And it's not like we want to put the fences up so that nobody who wasn't born in Broadway can come and live there. But it's extremely important. You know, the majority of people that I went to school with who their families have lived in Broadway and they have to live in Evesham or wherever because they can't afford to live in Broadway. So I very much welcome the shared ownership part of this application. Now, as you can gather, this application has been a long time coming forward because it's extremely complex. We've just been drawn into a conversation about the 3G pitches and whether they're a good idea and all the rest of it. But can I draw members back to the fact that that picture that you see before you, in an ideal world, if it wasn't for the fact of land transfer and all the different complications that sit behind this application, exactly where the top two boxes of the screen would have come forward as an application and where the bottom two boxes of the screen would have come forward as another application. And I would like members to very much consider that when they're looking at this application, because the duty for us, and the reason why I've asked the questions about the green infrastructure, is because the duty is on us to ensure that the people that live in those homes, if this application is approved today, that they have the green infrastructure which needs to be open and recreational that they can use and have the benefit from. And yes, we've spoken about local groups and existing residents of Broadway and what have you, but within this application, we must consider what the people that are going to live in those homes are going to have. And within, as we know, the planning policy, they must have 40% green infrastructure. Because if you looked at those top two boxes alone, it's just over 20% of green infrastructure, which is not policy compliant. And within the report, we've been asked to forego that policy compliance to enable the number of housing to be brought forward. Therefore, that takes me on to my key point. Everything that you see around the football pitches and the clubhouse and the 3G pitch and how wonderful it is to play American football on and all the rest of it, we need to remember that that is going to be under the control of Broadway Football Club. Now, yes, there is a proposed community use agreement within there, but it is very, very prescriptive. It is talking about fundamentally that the residents of and the community can use it fundamentally when Broadway Football Club don't want to use it. So if they can use it at 3 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon, that isn't really going to be much good to the residents of Broadway, but also within that community use agreement. So it needs to give free and open access to the residents of Broadway, and it also needs to make sure that obviously they're certainly not paying for it. I understand that there may have to be a degree of booking within there, but the conditions as we have them at the moment around particularly the community use aren't wide enough to my thinking as it stands at the moment. And the reason why I've insisted upon the question about the 3G pitch, about what it can be used for, is because we can't just say that everybody that lives in those houses is going to want to play football. Now, a lot has been made about the 3G pitch, but there's 3 other pitches that are there. Now, there's nothing to stop that community use agreement being that one of those other pitches is open for the community to use, so that then you don't have to follow a booking agreement, because we need to be aware that it's two distinct areas. One that is residential and the other one that is in the control of Broadway Football Club. Okay, and that's the thought process that we need to have within line of that. And the duty on us is to make sure that whoever lives in those houses have that open and recreational space to play whatever they want to play in. If they just want to get a tennis bat and have a bit of a game of tennis or whatever, then that's what they need to be able to do. So the other things that is the biggest concern for me, and because this has been going on for quite a period of time, obviously I've had a number of negotiations with the agent, and that's why the community use agreement was brought into place, because the green infrastructure was so low. But I still think to honour the people that would be living in these houses, we need to go substantially further with that. So if my colleagues were minded to approve this today, I would want that condition 23 and condition 25 to be vastly expanded, and if that means a change of the configuration about who uses what and what's fenced off and not fenced off, then that's what we need to do. But we need to achieve that community use for the residents. Also, just on other things, I would like to see that the off-site BNG to be conditioned that it's within a certain radius of the site, because as Councillor Tucker says, you know, there's no reason in the open countryside for it to be miles away from the site. And also, as far as the actual management of when the development was being built, because it's right next to the caravan site, which is a holiday caravan site, I would want to see included in there that no works happen on a Saturday. We've spoken briefly about the orchard and the play area. I'm not sure whether we have actually. This application originally didn't even have that in there, so there was nowhere even for any children to swing on a swing. But what I would also want is that if my colleagues are minded to approve this, that the orchard and the play area and the open areas as they are offered to the parish council in the first instance with the relevant commuted sum. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sims, do you want to address this committee?
Yeah, Chair. The site known as Milestone Grounds is owned by Wychavon District Council, and it's been accepted, not necessarily liked, that this would be a housing development site, mixed-use site. But who knew the significance of this development is in the archaeology, which has been barely touched on. Thank you, Gillian, for mentioning it. And the remarkable and fascinating discoveries found on this site, from the Paleolithic to the Roman and now the 21st century. And it is evident that there have been settlements there. And importantly, this new development seeks to establish a new settlement that will reflect Broadway's historic heritage. And my thanks go to the archaeologists and their dedication, actually. The reduction of the housing from 115 to 113 also reflects the archaeological significance of this site to preserve the historic elements. And I acknowledge and thank the developer for listening to the archaeological evidence of this. The residents of Broadway have been consulted and their thoughts reflected, and the parish council has been instrumental, as has the Broadway Trust, in acting between the developer and planning to ensure that all the residents' voices have been listened to by public consultation, so that this development forms part of the village in all aspects of design and is not just a satellite extension of the village. New Barn Surgery has been touched on, but has been a significant consultee in the development process, as the development is in close proximity to the surgery. And the importance of this is ensuring that patients have the reassurance that the boundary between the surgery consultation rooms and the development are distanced suitably to preserve patient privacy, and that there is a level of open space between the surgery and nearby houses. And this development, as with all developments, has not been wrinkle-free. And this development, as we've touched on, is complex. You know, it encompasses the football club and housing. And it's a sizable site. And I think, you know, there's no margins for adequate here. You know, it has to be a development of quality and green space. And I do want to thank Gillian, the planning officer, for her pragmatism and professionalism and answering all our queries. So thanks very much. And that's all I want to say, really. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sims. I'll open it to debate. Any of you got any points to make? Councillor Birch.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I've heard from the various speakers and from both ward members, and I think what was clear throughout was sort of the acceptance over there being a level of development on this site, but of course the need for it to be done right. And by the sounds of it, there's been lengthy consultation. Looking through the report, there was meetings held which had huge levels of attendance for a village, far greater than we see for a lot of applications. And there's been a number of meetings that have taken place between the ward members and the developer, along with the planning officers. So I'm confident that no stone's been left unturned, but it seems that there's still a couple of snags that Councillor Kersey alluded to that would need ironing out. So from my point of view, seeing I was hoping that somebody else may speak first, but we are where we are. I would be happy to approve, in line with officers' recommendations, the approval of this application with a couple of small amendments. First of all, around condition 23 and 25, to ask that the wording of these conditions is delegated to the Director of Planning and Infrastructure in association with the ward members to look to amend, to ideally look to provide priority access to the community for at least one of the 3 non-3G pitches, with then a shared usage agreement for the 3G pitch itself. As Councillor Adams alluded to, it's incredibly important that young people and people of all ages are able to access that 3G pitch. But of course, as Councillor Kersey has said, this needs to benefit the local community, and because of that, I think one of the 3 non-3G pitches, it would be reasonable for local residents to be able to have priority use, because of course, as Councillor Kersey says, the football club will likely want them during Saturdays, evenings for training, and I think it's important that the community, who will also want them during those times, have the opportunity to do so and to utilise that. In regards to the BNG, I'd be happy to look to amend that condition so that it is within a 3-mile radius. I think that's reasonable given the area. I'm going to amend that slightly. We're going to go to 5. The ward member is happy with 5. So because of the area, I think that's personally perfectly reasonable. I think, you know, it's a rural area and 5 miles. There should be plenty of opportunities there. And similarly, I think within the work plan, I think it's perfectly reasonable to condition no work on weekends. I don't think that should be an issue. I don't think there's many developers that choose to work on a weekend anyway. So I think it's perfectly reasonable to include that within the conditions of work, that no work can take place over the weekend. I'd like to think I've covered everything, but I'm sure Councillor Kersey will tell me if I haven't. And then the other condition around the orchard space, and it was the open space, and around the, if we can condition for discussions to take place with the parish council about whether there is any opportunity for the parish council to look at maintaining that space, to look at taking on that space should they wish, and whether that is a reasonable condition to add. But I think that's all from me. Somebody else may wish to add something else on top of that, but I'm happy to stop there, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Adams?
Yeah, I'd love to second that. I think Councillor Birch has put it over better than I've got. I've got orchard, play area, pitch. I think you've covered them all, Dan. And I think we've got to have agreement over there with the local members' involvement. And, you know, it's a wonderful application, I think, with the pitch and all the rest of it. What a lovely area. And I said that as I jumped off the coach, the atmosphere in that area, Broadway, very lucky people who live there. So I think if we can get those agreements and if we can't, then it'll have to come back, won't it? So I propose exactly what Dan said, second one.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Any further points? Before I ask for a sum up on what we decided, I have had a proposal from Councillor Birch, seconded by Councillor Adams. Kieran, would you like to sum up the conditions side of it?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I was just going to pick up on a couple of bits. So I don't think there's anything particularly problematic, but just as matters of clarification, really. So in terms of the BNG, I was going to pick up on that point first. I think it's absolutely right that we want to try and deliver that locally. I think there needs to be and I think that would be the intention, and we can certainly look at the wording of that. But there also needs to be some flexibility if it's not deliverable within a period in an area. And the reason I'm mentioning it is just to do with BNG, like credits and registered sites. So I don't know what's available and when this development comes forward, whether it would be. So we'd have to look at it in that sense.
Can we then look at amending that slightly to sort of align more with the amendments that we made to condition 23 and 25, so that there is ward member involvement in essentially ascertaining where that site is? So both whether that's within 5 miles or outside of 5 miles, just so that the local ward members are consulted on that prior to any decision being made.
Yeah, I
is
mean,
that reasonable?
I think the condition needs to say the requirements, so we need to set that out, and that would be agreed with the local ward member. And then normally the condition would just state the local planning authority, because obviously we're all part of that, rather than name individuals like the parish council or anybody else. So from that perspective, that's how we'd normally deal with it. Obviously we can make sure that we liaise with the ward member as and when we receive those details, and I'm sure both ward members will be involved as well in any case. In terms of the community use, again, I don't think there's any issue in principle. I think it's just we don't know the arrangements for the football club and what management's arrangements for those pitches they have. So I think, again, in consultation with the ward member, but just not to manage expectations, but we don't know what we're going to be able to negotiate, because ultimately that's a discussion that we're going to have after this committee. So again, just I think that was a point that needed to be flagged up, and particularly as there's various policies within the plan in terms of green space and what that is, and it can be in order for open space provision and green space, it can be privately managed as well. So I think there's just that discussion around that, but it's certainly something we can take away, and like I say, in consultation with the ward member as well. I think there was a couple of conditions to be amended as well. I think they related to. They related.
There was the no work on Saturday as part of the construction management plan. 23 and 25 regarding the sports pitches, the provision of open space and the orchard for that discussion to take place with the parish council, and then there was the BNG one. So they were the 4.
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of the parish council point, that's certainly something we've included in 106s before, as it offered to them first. Again, the only thing we obviously haven't discussed with the applicants of whether there's a reason why they wouldn't be happy with that, because that has to be included within the legal agreement, so it would be part of those agreement. But I think normally that's something that a developer is quite happy to allow to happen. So it gets offered essentially to the parish as first refusal. They can take on the land or choose not to, with a commuted sum. Sorry.
Councillor Kersey, have any thoughts?
Chairman, thank you. Yes, just really to just speak slightly further on the points that Kieran has made. With regards to the parish council, you're absolutely right. In a lot of cases now, we tend to get it offered to the parish council with the relevant commuted sum for the parish council to have first refusal. I do very much see, though, particularly with this application, this to be something that we want to be conditioned. And the reason being is because Broadway Parish Council, Broadway has got a fantastic play area at the other end of the high street that the parish council look after extremely well. So I would most certainly want this area that we've got, the orchard area, the play area, to be in the hands of the parish council, which I'm sure so long as it's the relevant commuted sum, that the parish council would want to take on responsibility for that. So I would certainly want to see that. In relation to the points that you made about the football club, whatever it is that they would agree, let's be very clear here. This is a planning application. If this planning application didn't go through, the sports pitches wouldn't happen. So we need to be very clear. This is development-led. It's not football club-led. So we need to be very clear what the development needs to have for the residents of that development, and that's what needs to be agreed for the application to go ahead.
Thank you. Some of it is owned by the football club, isn't it? Any other thing to say before we go to a vote? I think we've probably done this one quite well and discussed a lot of facts on this one. So, proposal by Councillor Birch, seconded by Councillor Adams. Would you like to sum up, Rachel? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the motion is to approve this application in accordance with the officer recommendation as set out in the update report, subject to conditions 23 and 25, the wording delegated to the Director of Planning and Infrastructure in consultation with the ward member. With regard to biodiversity net gain, the location of that is to be agreed with in consultation with the ward member. Members, I'm so sorry. The construction management plan will stipulate that there is to be no work on site on a Saturday, and with regard to the open space and orchard, to ensure that the parish council are offered the opportunity to maintain this area. Is that everything covered? Everybody happy with that? Okay. All those in favour, please raise your voting cards. 13 in favour. All those against? 1 against. The motion is carried, Chair.
Thank you, and thank you for the speakers. We're going to have a 10-minute break. Exactly 10 minutes, if you can, please. Right, so we'll carry on, thank you. Item 9, planning application 25/01806. Could you concentrate for a minute? Thank you. The Old Smithy, Main Street, Elmley Castle. We have two speakers, Rebecca Stafalani, is that correct? Sorry about the pronunciation, if I got it wrong. And Stephen Holloway, if you could come to the... Thank you. And Victoria Finch, I think you are presenting this, so over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This application is for a proposed rear extension, internal alterations and landscaping at the Old Smithy in Elmley Castle, a Grade 2 listed building. The site is located in the village of Elmley Castle to the south of the district. This is the site location plan, and this shows the location with an aerial view of the site. This slide shows the existing rear elevation, floor plans and rear landscaping. This is the proposed floor plans. The proposed rear extension, internal works and landscaping are shown in red. To be clear, the internal works consist of a subdivision of a first floor room to create a bathroom. No other internal works are included within this application. This is for proposed elevations, showing the proposed rear extension and the landscaping. This slide shows a comparison of the previously approved listed building consent and the current proposal. The previous householder permission was refused due to loss of light to the neighbouring property and insufficient private parking. The application is now supported by a neighbouring daylight and sunlight study and a car parking assessment. These photos show the existing rear elevation of the Old Smithy. It shows the historic timber beams in the centre of the rear elevation. This is the view of the front of the property. The principal elevation would remain unchanged. This shows the south elevation of the neighbouring property, Drakeley Cottage, which would directly face the proposed development. It is noted that comments have been sent directly to the committee members from a parish council and residents. Officers were notified of this, and these have been published on the website to ensure openness and transparency. The parish council have also submitted comment requesting a construction environment management plan condition should the committee be minded to approve the application. Members will also be aware that there is an enforcement investigation ongoing on the site relating to alleged unauthorised works. This would have no impact on the assessment of this current application and should not be considered today. As a point of clarification about the officer report, when referring to the neighbouring property, Drakeley Cottage, as a rendered property, this referred to the principal elevation, which is a black and white timber cottage. The side and rear elevations, as you saw today, are brickwork. The recommendation is one of approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Rebecca Stefanik, you have 3 minutes, thank you.
This application was refused in 2024 for the adverse impact on residential amenity and harm to highway safety. The new plans are almost identical apart from the renaming of the extra bedroom to a study. Key points: the loss of light and overshadowing. The extension wall will rise to 6 metres, blocking all afternoon sunlight to Drakeley Cottage. In the South Worcestershire Design Plan 21, 12 metres should be maintained from a neighbouring property to a blank gable wall. This proposal is 5.7 metres. Drakeley Cottage is narrow-fronted and its front room much lower than the Old Smithy. The height and proximity of the extension will cause a tunnelling effect which will impact the higher windows as well as the ground floor, making it damp and dark. The light assessment was taken in April. Concerns are for the darkest months, October to March. Obtrusive light. In stark contrast, and to maximise their natural light, 11 windows will face Chough and Georgian cottages, with more doors and windows on the northern elevation. Of the 11, 5 are large roof panels and will cause considerable light intrusion, be visually dominant and harm biodiversity. Highway safety. A parking assessment was taken at 4:50 a.m. when Main Street was quiet. The difficulty for resident parking is daylight hours and up to pub closing times. The addition of a new room and the loss of off-road parking, garage to a utility room, will exacerbate the problem as places are already at a premium. Overdevelopment. The Old Smithy has already undergone major alterations, knocking 2 dwellings and a shop into one, making it the largest property in the terrace. A 2-storey extension would spoil the proportion and balance of the original building and would be out of scale compared to neighbouring cottages. It will not conserve or enhance the setting of the adjacent listed properties, a view echoed by the parish councillors on the visit in October and in SWDP 6 and 24. Drainage, shared amenities and groundwork. The officer's report refers to waste management statement, where water will be discharged to a soakway. However, there is no evidence of a ground investigations or infiltration testing to assess if a soakway is a viable option or where it would be located. There is a shared sewage network between the Old Smithy and Drakeley Cottage. The access would be under the extension. Considerable groundwork would be needed to divert this, with the potential to do harm and to the listed properties which have no proper foundations. Ecology. There is no formal response from the ecology officer, and the consultant ecologist has recommended further surveys should be carried out. In conclusion, the proposed extension will be overbearing, significantly overshadow Drakeley Cottage, illuminate the gardens of Chough and Georgian cottages, exacerbate parking, increase the risk of flooding, cause unnecessary groundworks, and irreversibly change the character of these small listed cottages that rest in a conservation area. For the reasons I've stated, I strongly urge you reject this application. Thank you.
Many thanks. Stephen Holloway, you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As set out by the case officer's report, this proposal seeks approval for a two-storey rear extension inclusive of alterations to the garden patio area and associated internal works. The proposal is a resubmission of a previously submitted scheme for comparable two-storey development, which members will be aware was granted listed building consent but refused householder consent. Since this decision, we have actively worked with both the case officer and conservation team to review the proposal prior to resubmitting the application. As part of this work, we have engaged with the pre-application discussions to review alternative options and commissioned additional survey work to review previous matters of concern and refusal. We are acutely aware that, aside from elements of the community that have shown support for this project, a number of neighbours are opposed to the development. Throughout the development of this proposal, we have always acknowledged these matters raised and have sought to design a proposal in such a way that is sympathetic to both the historic building but also neighbouring properties. The consideration of design and engagement with neighbouring comments has continued throughout the assessment of the proposal, where, for example, we have undertaken and taken on board neighbouring comments and reduced window openings in the southern elevation of the extension, therefore going from 11 windows down to 6. In consideration of previous matters for refusal, detailed assessment and review of daylight impacts and parking provision has been commissioned. In regard to daylight, the report using Building Research Establishment Guide for Site Layout has found that the extension would pass the relevant diffuse daylight and sunlight tests and would safeguard the daylight and sunlight amenity of neighbouring properties. Members should be aware that the report methodology is designed to account for conditions throughout the year, so to ensure the reduction in sunlight received over the whole year is no greater than 4% the annual probable sunlight hours. In consideration of highway matters, the assessment was undertaken to assess car parking provision outside of the normal commuting hours to establish a true baseline for provision. The methodology, as members will see, was presented to the County Highways Authority, who agreed the assessment was appropriate and no objection has been raised. As the scheme was previously granted listed building consent, the exterior designing massing has not changed, aside from the removal of dormer windows which were facing towards the neighbouring property to the south. This design is considered to be complement the host property and retain the context of the freebase structure as guided by the conservation team. As I've already highlighted, the design has been rigorously assessed prior to planning submission to ensure the proposal meets all relevant policy and supplementary design standards. I would at this stage like to thank the Council's case officer for their proactive approach to engagement on this project, and I hope members can support the officer's recommendation for approval. Thank you, and I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Holloway. Just to remind everybody that there are two parts to this, and the second is planning for listed building consent. This is the first part. I think you got something relevant before. No? So I need to ask. No, okay. The ward member is Councillor Beverley Hardman. Have you any questions to ask the speakers?
Yes, I'm afraid I have. Not in any particular order.
The light survey, I think it's very professionally well done, but there's no data, so I can't check it. And if I can't check it, I can't guarantee it's correct, because there's no data saying how far away from what wall it's measured. I've read it a couple of times, and it's not precise enough for me to check it. So I don't, unless I have that data, I don't think it's relevant. You need the data to back it up, and there's not the data there that you use for that light survey. So can you give me the data now, or we have to say that document can't be used until you get the data?
I obviously don't have the data on me at this stage, but that data can be made available. Obviously, it's the data that was used to draw the conclusions, and the appendices to the statement was provided with the planning assessment. So I see no reason why that document would be suspended from consideration at this time.
Thank you, but I do think we need it. When you're viewing a document, you need to check it, and if you don't give the data, we can't check. Separately, what have I got next? The layout of the building, you just showed it, it's not exactly the same as you look on Rightmove when they bought the property. So it's not the layout it was on Rightmove 2 years ago. So I question that, why it's been changed before you start the planning consent. I've got the copies here from Rightmove if you want to see them. It's not identical to what you have. So it concerns me what's going on in that building.
Can you answer that one, Victoria, or perhaps?
Quite happy to. I think what you're alluding to there is the recent planning enforcement investigation that's been raised regarding internal works.
Well, yes.
You'll understand that, and members can see from the officer's report that this building has been subject to a number of planning applications and listed building consents over and above the one that's been for consideration today. Therefore, works have been undertaken in accordance with those listed building consents.
I'm talking about a plan you put in on the page for the pre-plan you put in on the notification, which doesn't show any walls, and this from Rightmove, which is different from your planning application you put in. It is different from what actually was on Rightmove when the house was bought. So it's different.
Yes, and apologies, I was just trying to explain that point. Like I say, the householder has undertaken works in accordance with other listed building consent and householder consent applications that have been approved by this authority. Therefore, that there will be a difference between the house that you can see on Rightmove that was originally bought by the current owner and my client to what is there at present day.
Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can we have the screens, the pictures up on the screen? There we go.
You've got to carry on.
Okay, when we get to it, the traffic management scheme, I know that the County Council said there was no issue. I would like to ask why they said there's no issue, considering in 24 they helped to put yellow lines around the school, which is under 200 metres away, because of all the parking issues. So if they knew about that, why didn't they mention they considered that was okay? Because when you go to that road on certain times of the day, you can't park. If you go at 10 o'clock in the morning, you're okay. You go at 4:30, you're okay. But school time, you can't park. And there were major issues that's caused that school to have yellow lines and police out there at one stage because people got so upset. And the County Council have not recognised that issue. So there is an issue with parking in that road.
I think, would you like to take that one, Victoria? Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. So in reference to the parking, County Council, in a pre-application response which was submitted, have said there is sufficient capacity for one extra car, which would potentially be resulting from a development. In terms of construction traffic, I have contacted County Council Highways Department for a response on whether they would recommend a condition. I haven't received a response on that, so that's something that the committee can consider for themselves.
Thank you. Next question. On the application to change one of the bedrooms to an office, we know that there's already an office now in the garden. So one, are we considering that 2 offices are okay? And secondly, if the house gets built, how can you guarantee that office is not turned into a bedroom?
Mr. Holloway, would you like to answer that one?
The fact that there's already an office in the garden and that there's now one being proposed at the first floor is simply down to client preference. Both the husband and wife have work from home requirements, and therefore they wanted space separate from each other. If I had to work from home as much as I do with my wife, I'd probably want the same at my house as well. Hopefully she's not watching this YouTube screaming, but we'll see how it goes. In terms of the control, you're quite correct. Internal works aren't development; they fall outside of the scope of the Town and Country Planning Act. But what I would say is the assessment that's been undertaken by Highways is made on the assumption that room could be used as a bedroom, and therefore no objection is made. Actually, what we're providing is a neutral at the minute shown on there, but if it were to be converted to a bedroom, the highway assessment has been done on that basis and reviewed on that context, and the no objection has still been put across to us.
Thank you. I understand that. So therefore, we could remove it as being an office and just leave it blank because we can't control that in the house. My last question at the moment is the foul water system. At the moment, it's in the garden and it will be under the new extension. So how do people control issues of foul water going forward?
That's outside of the scope of my knowledge, planner, not building controller. But like I say, moving forward, should the committee support the officer's recommendation, obviously the matter of design and how the foul drainage system and any solution that's required to that is put forward.
Sorry for that. It's our up-to-date councillor with the new iPad. Sorry about that, for the interruption. Yes, Kieran, could you...
Sorry. Do you want me to finish that? Yeah, sorry, I'll just finish that answer off. So, is everybody back in the room?
Mr. Holloway, do you want to finish up?
Is that okay?
Was that it?
Yeah, so basically, essentially what I'm saying is that the foul water system will be monitored and obviously signed off by building control under the building regulations process. So it's not yet confirmed to give you an affirmative that answer, but it will be obviously confirmed during the next stage of this process should we be supported through this committee.
Thank you.
So we don't know if anything happens where they're going to be able to get access to it at the moment, then the foul water system, if they need to.
Like I say, the design of the foul water system moving forward will be in full compliance with building regulations, and the building regulations, as to my knowledge, will take on board the ability and capacity for future occupants, the occupant, any other person in the area to access it for maintenance requirements if required. If the building regulation system doesn't allow for that now, that's slightly probably outside of the purview of this planning committee and my ability, unfortunately.
And there's one final one, just to check, the water from the back area of the house, where will that go into the system? Is it going to go to connect to the main road, or is it going to go pipes down the back of the buildings?
Apologies, just for clarity, you're talking surface water and runoff?
The water from all the guttering, everything else, everything from the back of the building, where's it going to go?
Surface, runoff, yeah. So at the minute we're proposing, and obviously it's been mentioned that there's been no percolation tests, but we are proposing soak away. If it helps members and members are happy, I quite happily, if officers and chair are happy with that, I would be quite happy to take a condition that stipulates that percolation testing must be undertaken prior to commencement, so that the design of surface water can be confirmed, and then off the back of that discharge of condition, the specific locations of, for example, soakaways will be confirmed.
I'm afraid that now has another issue, because you probably don't know. There is water problems further down from where you are, and we believe it's coming from the back areas parallel the main road, causing a lot of issues further down. So there is real issues in that village, causing flooding outside somebody's house further down, and they think it's coming from past back of your house and all the other houses down there. So it is a real issue, and sadly there's no one from drainage here now to help with that.
No, unfortunately not. But obviously the constraints on the site have been reviewed, and there is no clear EA flood constraint or surface water flood constraint that we're working with, if there is the ability to obviously capture surface water runoff in the site and deal with it effectively, then that will obviously be undertaken through the design process, and if members require the conditionality that I just suggested.
Okay, there is no current company, but there is an issue, and
I think
the District Council and County Council are working on that flooding issue.
Councillor Hardman, I think that's a precondition anyway of any development, isn't it? Councillor Hardman? Yes. Not listening. Thank you anyway. Further questions, Councillor Kersey, followed by Councillor Morris.
Chairman, thank you. A question to the applicant. Could you tell me, please, other than the survey with the guidance, what has specifically changed since the application has been refused? So what are the material considerations that we need to take into account that has changed since it was refused?
So in addition to the additional survey work that we had, so that being the light and the traffic assessment, you'll, I don't know if you've got an image, oh, there we go, thank you. So you'll see that on the southern elevation, so we're looking at the rear gable at the minute, you can see there's a dormer window that was approved under the listed building consent. So if you look at the top right-hand panel there, those dormer windows have been changed to roof lights, and there was no objection to the dormer windows, but we felt that the roof lights were more suitable for the relationship with adjacent neighbours. And then aside from that, it's largely fenestration, so you can see that you've got the patio doors in the gable end there, and then just some slight differences in iteration to the south elevation. We haven't got the French doors anymore, it's a window. There's a lot less glazing that's been provided, and that was part of the considerations that we made from comments that came in from neighbours, that elevation was over provisioned with glazing. So we took that fully on board. I mean, there's an iteration in between the top and the bottom picture there of that southern elevation that showed more roof lights. Like I say, the figure that was quoted of 11 is the previous iteration. We've now got 8, not 6, 8. So we reduced it from 8 to 11 to 8. But those are the primary changes, and like I say, officers have supported us that we've addressed the refusal reasons.
Okay, so fundamentally, I can see, and thank you for highlighting the changes, but I can't see that any of those changes are the changes that would impact the neighbouring property. So other than the guidance that you've had from the light survey, is there anything else that's materially changed based on the refusal reasons?
In terms of material change, yes. So from the last time that this was considered by officers to now, the surveys are material considerations, and they weren't there before. And I agree and support officers in what they did previously in refusing it, because they didn't have the data and the information to undertake that assessment. So at that time, officers were sat there with essentially a breach to the 45-degree code from a habitable room, and then they didn't have the guidance and the data to then assess what that impact was. So if I was still a Wychavon officer, I would have made that same consideration. What we've done in terms of material change then is, and like I say, I know it seems small, but it's assessing that information. It's first making sure that the design we had didn't actually impact the daylight and sunlight of the neighbouring property. Had that report come back and found a material harm, we would have obviously altered the scheme accordingly, but it didn't, so we haven't needed to. And then obviously on top of that, we've got the supportive approval of the listed building consent, which meant that the design was suitable for the historic setting of that structure. So we were guided by that information really, and then obviously the additional comments that we received from neighbours in terms of windows, etc.
Okay, so to be clear, the thing that's changed from a material consideration since it's been refused is the survey that's been carried out, which gave the guidance. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Morris.
I think my question has partly been answered, but just in case, can I just ask a question? In the conclusions, it says the overall proposal would largely comply with relevant policy. Now, I read that as to meaning it's not compliant, but I just want to be clear of the 2 points. Is that what's stated on page 223, which is the two angles? Is that, am I understanding that correctly? So it's the 25 degree and the 45 degree. Is that correct?
I think that is correct, actually.
What was the question?
The question is, in the conclusion it says it's largely compliant. I'm just checking which two areas it's not compliant on, and I think they're on page 233, is that right?
To be honest, I think the largely compliant is kind of standard wording for a conclusion. Obviously, there is a breach of the 25 and the 45 degree rule as set out in our design guide, but given the submitted light assessment, we've overall considered that there isn't a harmful impact on amenity, so it would be compliant with SWDP 21.
Right, okay, that's actually created another question. What's the difference between a policy and guidance? I thought a policy was more rigid than guidance. Am I right in thinking that?
So policy SWDP 21, I think IV, just requires the development not to harm residential amenity. The design guide SPD goes into a lot more detail in how to assess that, but in terms of the policy, we've overall considered that there is no harm to residential amenity.
Councillor Sims?
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask, at the back, is it north facing, northwest, do we know, in terms of the sort of the light, sunlight? West?
Yep, west facing.
So it's west facing, so, okay, so the sun, so the east, opposite. Okay, all right, sorry, just...
Thank you. Councillor, I must ask Councillor Doug, because she's a bit late, where you can't vote on this one, but I'll just take... Can I ask him for points of view as well? No, I'm sorry about that. Councillor Kersey.
Chairman, thank you. I'm just a bit concerned about what I've just heard. You said that you've said explicitly there is no harm. And how are you then basing that you're saying that there is no harm? Because, yeah, because you've just said that there's no harm, whereas we're talking obviously that there is a breach in the policy, but you're saying that you've taken that there is no harm.
I think in my report I've said that there would be some impact to the light received to Drakeley Cottage, but it would not be reduced to unacceptable standards, and both habitable rooms would also receive light from alternative sources. Not that there would be no harm.
No, that's fine. Sorry, that's what I just picked up. I think that Fran just said that there was going to be no harm. That I was a bit confused. And just a question, Chairman, if I may, please, just to the applicant. This survey that gave the guidance, how was the survey commissioned? Who commissioned that survey?
We did. Yeah, so in terms of... Yeah, is that okay? Fine.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's probably fine. Thank you. Yeah, no more questions. Thank you. Would you like to return to your seats? Thank you both. Councillor Hardman, would you like to address this committee? Thank you.
Yes, we've got two different buildings surveyors' reports from here, one from Stangate Planning and one from Smith Marston. They don't say the same information, and they don't give the same outcome. And again, go back to the fact I haven't got data probably from either of them to check which one I think is more correct. So as both aren't in parallel with each other, I don't know how you can consider one is more valid than the other, because both are professional people who have given their views on the lighting for this cottage next door. Separately, if you do pass this, which I hope you don't, I would like to look at traffic management, because while I was waiting for this meeting, bing, my email goes, and guess what? They're closing the part of the road, Elmley Castle, because as you can see just behind your head, there's a little narrow road, and that is being hit again by lorries, and they're having to close it emergency for 5 days. Constantly have issues down that road. Like we say, we have issues with parking because of school, the pub. It's not always easy to park there. Depending which time of day you go, it can be easy, but not often it isn't. So I'd like you consider a traffic management scheme because as you've been there, you'll see there's going to be an awful lot of soil coming out of that building as well, and it is difficult to park, so please consider that. What else can I say? I know you're going to talk about the water and look at the water. I think that's a real issue, and it is an issue in Elmley. They do have a lot of water issues that needs to be considered on the planning. And the what else I said? I think you've covered everything else because I've said a lot already, but please consider it all seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will open it to the committee for any points that you want to make. Councillor Hardman, you're raising your hand.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. I mean, the thing that slightly puzzles me about this is what has changed since we first refused it. Well, we have two differing light surveys, one of which the officers clearly put some weight in, but they both agree that it breaks the 45 under 25 degree rule, which is the basic reason why we turned it down last time. And so, Chairman, I mean, I will just move refusal again, because I don't believe anything has changed, and I don't think that removing a couple of dormer windows and putting in a loose light has materially changed the mass of the building. But if the committee is minded to approve this, I would go with the idea that you do need traffic management here. Because actually, I'm afraid to say the local member is wrong. The biggest problem that you have with this site over parking and access to the road is, strangely, of course, the school buses that go to and fro backwards and forwards, because traffic tends to park up by the hole in the wall, which is why the county council put in a line of stones to guide the bus round, and has also put in yellow line markings by the Georgian cottage. And if you displace vehicles up there, all the school buses get stuck. Therefore, Chairman, I do think we do need a traffic management plan if you're minded. But I'm moving refusal.
Thank you, Councillor Hardman. Councillor Kersey.
Chairman, thank you. Yeah, I'm surprised in a way, really. Members of the Planning Committee, we know all too well that we base things on policy and whether things comply with policy or whether they don't. And we don't base decisions on guidance and guidance on surveys that we're not privy to that have been commissioned by the applicant. I would thank Councillor Hardman for bringing this application to committee, and I would also thank her for calling a site visit, which was particularly useful for us to see it with our own eyes and to see the implications on the neighbouring property. But it's very clear this does not comply with the 25-degree rule, and it does not comply with the 45-degree rule, and therefore it's not policy compliant. It has harm to the amenity of the next door neighbour, and therefore it doesn't comply with SWDP 21. So I would fully support Councillor Hardman's refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Are you seconding that, are you?
Did I not say second? No. What did I say?
Supporting.
Oh, beg your pardon. I second Councillor Hardman's refusal that it does not comply with SWDP 21.
Thank you. Are there any further points on this one? No. Then I would bring it to a vote. We have a proposal from Councillor Hardman and seconded by Councillor Kersey for refusal. Over to you, Rachel.
Do you mind if I just clarify? Yeah. So just to clarify on the reason for refusal, so we're clear, it relates to the loss of light to that habitable window in relation to the bedroom on the neighbouring property, and that conflict with the various 45 and 25 degree rule, and the ground floor. And upset. So those windows in that. Sorry, we obviously need to be pretty precise on what we're saying. So the windows in that side elevation of the neighbouring property. I just to very quickly mention in terms of the SPD, it is material consideration, so it has weight. It's been adopted by the council and is still in force. There is conflict. I think just to pick up on the point that it's not unusual for a developer to submit information and reports for us to consider whether that addresses those concerns. Ultimately, there is an impact, and that was deemed by officers to be an acceptable impact, but there was an impact that was identified that would result in some level of loss of light. I think members are clear on that. Okay.
I'm going to ask that we take a vote, but I'm also going to ask. I'm afraid to say that Councillor Dyke left the room in the middle of it, and I'm sorry, and also Councillor Tucker is in the room, and so unfortunately you cannot vote on this. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Chair. The proposal is to refuse the application on the grounds that it is contrary to SWDP 21 and also the loss of light. Sorry, Kieran.
Yes, I think the refusal relates to the sort of harm to residential amenity associated with the proposed development given the orientation and impact on habitable windows in the neighbouring property, which would be contrary to policy SWDP 21. I suggest that final wording would be delegated to officers to finalise that.
Thank you, Kieran. You said that so much better than I could. All those in favour of the proposal to refuse, please raise your cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 10 in favour. All those against? 1, 2. Motion is carried, Chair.
Thank you very much. Now then. We're going to carry on to the next one, which is obviously totally connected with the listed buildings consent. I'm just going to ask, because we voted for refusal on the first one, I'm going to ask Kieran just to sum up the situation regarding considering the second one. Kieran.
Thank you, Chair. So because there are two separate applications, there's one that we considered just now and that was debated on.
Sorry, could you excuse me and interrupt? Could you either, if you're going, go, or stay? Thank you. I'm sorry to feel so authoritarian this afternoon. Okay.
So yeah, sorry, just to explain the situation, we obviously considered the planning application which relates to planning permission, which was just refused in the previous item. The second bit, which we haven't made a decision on, or the committee hasn't made a decision on, is the listed building consent. They're separate entities, so unfortunately we do have to take them separately. In terms of the officer recommendation, based on the previous conclusions of the committee, we would suggest that ultimately the listed building consent really goes with what was previously proposed. So without agreeing the planning permission, it doesn't justify the listed building consent works. Whether or not they're acceptable in their own way, the justification and public benefits for them would not be delivered because the planning permission's not been granted because there's been harm identified. So the recommendation would be a change from officers to recommend refusal of listed building consent. Primarily, I don't think we've identified harms in terms of the physical works themselves, but because they're unjustified, there's no public benefit that would outweigh those harms. So that's officer's recommendation would be to refuse listed building consents.
Without more ado, we will go through this as normal. And the speakers, have they disappeared? So we have no speakers, and I don't think the planning officers got. Do you want to say anything? I'm not sure whether you want to say anything else, Victoria, do you? No, there's nobody here to speak, is there? So we're really going quickly on this
Chairman,
one. Just a minute, Councillor Hardman. I'll just open it to the committee. Councillor Hardman.
Chairman, just to save time, if I can propose refusal along the lines of Kieran's suggestion where there's no public benefit.
Thank you. Councillor Kersey.
I second that, Chairman.
Any other comments? Then could be Rachel.
Chairman, can Councillor Tucker and I vote on this one or not?
I'm sorry you're letting left out. I apologise for that. No.
We can't because we haven't done a presentation again.
I'm afraid you can't, because we haven't done another presentation, but don't feel deprived because you can have a go the next time, as long as you don't disappear. So could we have please have a vote? It was proposed by Councillor Hardman, seconded by Councillor Kersey for refusal. Could we have a vote, please? And against?
Against. 2.
Any abstentions? Thank you. We'll move on to the one that's going to take the longest this afternoon. This is planning. Thank you very much, Victoria. And what's the name of the other one?
Fran.
Fran. Thank you, both. Planning application 250207. This is 1 Hampton Road, Droitwich Spa. Certificate of lawfulness to propose replacement of 2 storage containers with 1. And you know the reason why it's been brought to the committee. I'll go straight over to... there is a speaker. Sorry, Margaret, you've moved. Margaret has moved into the supporters club. Over to you, Matt, I think you're dealing with this. Could you outline this, please? Cool.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a really brief kind of presentation to go through on this application.
That'll make a change anyway.
Yes, it's only that thick. The application is for a certificate of lawfulness for the proposed replacement of 2 storage containers with 1 new container at 1 Hampton Road, Droitwich Spa. And you can see roughly where it is on there with the star within the district. The application would normally have been dealt with under delegated powers, but has been brought to committee on the grounds that the applicant is a Wychavon district councillor and the district council owns the land. The new storage container would be used to support boat and grounds maintenance operations carried out by the Canal and River Trust. These operational activities are considered lawful and do not require separate planning permission as they fall within routine canal management maintenance works. And the 2 existing containers would be removed from site. The primary consideration in respect to this application is whether or not the proposed works represent permitted development as defined under the Town and Country General Permitted Development Order 2015, as amended. And therefore benefit from planning permission and are lawful. Having reviewed the order, it's been determined that the proposed works represent permitted development and as such benefit from planning permission and are lawful. This certificate of lawfulness should therefore be granted.
Thank you very much. Well, one speaker, Councillor Rowley. You have all of 3 minutes.
Yes, yes. Well, I hadn't really thought it was important to speak, but I think I do have to say that it's actually the Droitwich Waterways Pamela May Trust who want to have the new container and who use the current containers. We do some work on behalf of the Canal and River Trust, but mainly it's supporting the running of the charitable trip boats, the Pamela May. The containers in existence, they've been there since before the canal restoration work was took place, which the restoration work was based at that site. And they are deteriorating, and we store the equipment for fundraising and also, as has been said, maintenance tools for work along the canal, because we maintain the Pamela May Reserve, which is a nature reserve next to the Droitwich Junction Canal, and we also assist the Canal and River Trust with their maintenance work along the canal. But as I say, it is quite crucial for the running of the Pamela May trip boat, which is moored at that site, that we do have this container storage. So I hope that you'll be able to approve the continuation of having a storage container. It is slightly in a different position because it is now going to be on hard standing, which is recommended for these containers to be on hard standing, whereas the two dilapidated ones, which have outstayed their welcome, are on the soil. So I do hope that you'll be able to support the application.
Thank you. Councillor Rowley.
Happy to answer any questions.
Well, the ward members are actually Councillor Franks and Councillor Nicola Morris. So are you showing you have got no questions? Absolutely excellent. So any other questions? Councillor Kersey.
Yes, Chairman, I'd just like to get my list out here of what I'd like to ask the Speaker. I'm just joking. Thank you very much.
I have a question which is related to the area.
Thank you.
In that, Margaret, I'm sure we'll be able to answer. Has that big concrete block in the middle of where all the boats are moored, is it still there or has it gone in the water?
Sorry, the
block that's in the water outside of
yes, the slipway. You're talking about the slipway?
No, it's in the water itself. There's a big.
Oh, the thing in the middle.
block.
Oh, that's not on this side. That's
further along.
Yeah, it's not shown actually. It should be in the middle of the that semicircle at the top right-hand corner. It's sort of near there, and it is still there. He knows what it's for, or what it was for. There have been theories.
I don't suppose there are any more questions, are there? No. Thank you. I won't ask you to return to your seat because it's all the way over there, so just stay where you are. If that's all right with the committee, we could just, I know what you're going to say, but are there any things that people want to say? Councillor Ward.
I'd just like to propose approval in line with officer recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Birch.
Thank you. Well, I know as the county council and Nicola as the district council, we've been bombarded with concern from residents about the application, but I'd like to think we can manage it, so I'm more than happy to second approval.
Are there any more points before you'll collect your paperwork together and rush off? No? No. Rachel, we've got a proposal from yes, Councillor Warden, seconded by Councillor Birch. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. All those in favour of the proposal to grant the certificate of lawfulness in accordance with officer recommendation? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
It's unanimous. That's
unanimous.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you, Matt, and everybody else. Thank you. I did it rather than the